You're good. Gotcha. And we are live, everybody. Welcome to the NFL Pick'em Strategy Show, which is what the name is that I see on the screen. 4 straight hours of NFL coverage brought to you by Bet365. I'm Josh Engelman. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engelman. Follow all of the Stochastic Odd Shopper accounts on Twitter. There's like 100 of them. You should follow all of them. At the very least, follow the main accounts and whichever sport you're attached to. In this case, it's probably the NFL. We're going to be here on this stream until 1 o'clock. So we're starting now. 4 more hours of coverage. You'll get Greg after this. You'll get Laffy and Ben breaking down every single game for like an hour and a half. And then you'll get live before lock all the way up until 1. We cover everything, folks. We cover everything. Jeff Williams in chat says, talk about the trade, please, Josh. I cannot, in good conscience, start an NFL show by talking about the Knicks and Wolves trade. I would be here for the entire half hour. I really would. I'd be breaking it all down. I'm fascinated by it. I tweeted out my thoughts. I'm not sure I love the trade for either team. I like it more for Minnesota than I do for the Knicks. But there will be a time where we can break that down. Unfortunately, today is not going to be that day. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to take a look at any available bets that we can get on the sportsbook side for sure. And then we're going to build out some cards on the pick'em streets, whether that's prize picks or underdog. We're going to try and use our boosts. We're going to try and use our free squares. There's a lot going on today that we could take advantage of. And we're going to do that in the next 24 minutes before we turn this one over to Greg Ehrenberg, where he's going to build out lineups for a half hour. Big top dog. Do you think Nick Chubb plays at all this season hoping for best ball? I have no idea. You're asking the wrong guy. I want to use Odd Shopper to take advantage of the value that's available. If you're looking for NFL takes, this is the wrong show. October 22nd. If you want real takes from me, they will start October 22nd when the NBA starts, and I will be able to give you every piece of details that you could possibly want. Michael Ortiz nailed it. Don't forget to hit the like button. I couldn't agree more. Hit it now. The goal is to get over 200 likes by the time we turn this one over to Greg. There's going to be like 1,000 of you here in the next 25 minutes. We need to get at least 200 of you to hit the thumbs up on this video. The only way we're going to get north of 1,000 overall today is if we start now. And if we start now, I can take a lot more credit and let everybody know that's after this. Greg, Laffy, Ben, Eric, Gajeski, whoever's showing up after this could know. The foundation got started right here. Let's get into it, everybody. Let's start on the pick'em streets, because we have, as we have for the first couple weeks of the season, we have a Caleb Williams free square going on Prize Picks right now. Over 0.5 passing yards. Now, if he loses this one, I don't know what to tell you. There's nothing we can do about it. But we're going to go in Odd Shopper using the Portfolio EV tool. We're going to go to the Pick'em Optimizer and find out what else is out there on Prize Picks. And boy, oh boy, are we in good shape. Jordan, sort that by EV, not by win rate. 6.9%. Now, I'm a little sad to do this one because it is in the EPL. It is Tottenham against Manchester United. But this is under in shots for Dom Solanke and Kulishevsky. But Solanke is a former Liverpool guy. I know you guys don't care about this on an NFL show, but I don't want to shoot. I don't want him to shoot less. I want Dom Solanke, former Liverpool player, to shoot and score 100 goals today because Manchester United sucks. And I want to cheer against Man U. But you know what I like more than that? Money. If you take the top 5 plays on Prize Picks right now, Dom Solanke, Kulishevsky, Byron Buxton, Rashad White's receiving yards, and Kobe Mainu, that's on Man U. Those 5 plays are 17% EV right out of the gate. And we haven't even put in the free square for Caleb Williams yet. So I've got those 4 plays in, plus Caleb Williams. Now, you cannot put a ton of money on a card like this. It's just not how it works out. They don't let you put 100 down with a free square. But anytime you can take advantage of these spots, especially on days like today, where we're seeing incredible value on Prize Picks, we want to take advantage of these spots. So we're actually only getting 2 NFL spots in this card. Rashad White, less than 22.5 receiving yards, and then the Caleb Williams free square. But we can put down 5 to win 125. And we have like 25% expected EV on this play, 17 plus a free square. It's a no-brainer, folks. It's an absolute no-brainer. Whether it's Prize Picks, Underdog, Sleeper, Better, DraftKings Pick 6, whichever site you're playing on, especially on NFL Sundays, but don't sleep on it on Thursdays and Mondays. These books and pick'em sites are going to give out all sorts of better value for you, whether it's these types of free squares, profit boosts, same game parlay boost, whatever it is. You should try to hit every single one of them. These are the things that bring your costs down. Because if you're never hitting them, then you're paying full freight every day that you do something. You're having to deal with that site's take on the day. Anything you could do to bring down your costs of doing business on these sites is going to improve what you're doing long term. And it's starting on Prize Picks with this Caleb Williams play. But keep in mind, we have the Solanke and Kulishevsky plays in Prize Picks, both north of 5% EV at this moment. And then we have 5 more plays north of 1%. You can build out multiple 6-pick cards and really flatten out your variance a bit. Instead of just building one card, let's say you wanted to put $20 down on the best 6 plays that you have on Prize Picks. My recommendation would be to put down much smaller amounts on multiple 6-pick cards. Rotate one person in, take the 6 best, then take out the worst play and replace it with the 7th best play. And rotate through all of those plays. Maybe build $21 cards instead of one $20 card. And give yourself the chance to have a little bit of ups and downs. It might take a bite out of the upper echelon because you're not going to hit. I mean, maybe you're going to go 10 for 10 and hit them all, but this will make you a little bit more comfortable, especially when we have days like this with 2 outlier plays. I would lock in Solanke and Kulishevsky and then rotate those other 4 around it. So that hits Prize Picks now. And that hits the Caleb Williams free square. Now we should hit the underdog side of it. And it's the same situation. It's just not Caleb Williams. It's Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes over 0.5 passing yards on underdog. Now, underdog tends to have a lot less positive value. And as we're looking at it right now, only Byron Buxton under 1.5 total bases has positive EV. So if you use Mahomes, Buxton, and I'm going to use Carrington in the WNBA, those three plays are probably not plus EV. I don't think we can use the underdog free square right now. Now, maybe that will change. There's going to be constant movement. This data is updating every couple seconds, so new value can show up. But as I see it right now, I don't think that we could actually take advantage of the Pat Mahomes free square on underdog. We're going to make a negative EV play if we try to use it at this moment. So we're not going to use it. We have to kick that one to the curb. What we don't have to kick to the curb, though, are some of the free abilities that we have on either FanDuel Sportsbook, DraftKings Sportsbook. If you play somewhere else, Fanatics, maybe you play on the sponsor, Bet365. If you don't, and you live in a legal sports betting state, and you haven't signed up at Bet365 yet, click the link in the description of this video. You can bet $5 and get up to $200 in bet credits. Why would you leave that on the table? Everybody should take advantage of all of these when you can. I'm going to the promotions on FanDuel Sportsbook at this moment because there are multiple boosts, free plays, etc. that you could use today that could immediately either give you no risk or at the very least limited risk on some real plays. Luckily for me, as it usually happens on FanDuel, I got to shout out FanDuel for this one. I'm locked out of my account. This happens once a week, I would say, where for some strange reason, I get the old boot from FanDuel, and then I have to change my password. And it happens over and over and over again. I am so sick of having to do this. I'm trying to filibuster as much as I can right now so that I can put this new password in. It's a bit of a problem because then I have to do my two-factor authentication. It's almost like they don't know that I've been playing on FanDuel for 8 years. I think I started on FanDuel in 8 years. I think I started in 2014. I don't move around all that often. I've been in North Carolina that entire time, but boy, oh boy, do they think that I'm not here on a constant basis. So for now, I actually can't get into my FanDuel account, which is next level annoying. But we can talk through the bonuses that exist. Gronk has the anytime touchdown profit spike. You get a 50% profit boost on any anytime touchdown scorer for today. So we can go back to Odds Shopper. We can go to the Parlay Builder because I think that's the easiest place to see this kind of stuff. I'll browse to FanDuel. I'll browse to the NFL. And then I'm going to browse to bet types. And we're going to take total touchdowns. And we can try to hunt down an anytime touchdown play and get a 50% boost on it. Anybody we want to take here, doesn't matter. We get a 50% boost. So I'm going to hit this one to you guys, chat. Who's scoring a touchdown today and you have no doubt about it? Who's getting a touchdown? That's what we need to know. Because there are certainly some spots that are a lot more likely to get a touchdown than others. Some games, totals in the high 40s, like the Bengals and the Panthers. Some games in the mid 30s, like the Browns and the Raiders. You don't have to put yourself in a situation where you're going to a game where scoring is less likely, especially on a situation where you're going to get a 50% profit boost. So chat is letting it rip now that I've said this. Let's see if we've got any duplicate names. I'm going to just read off everything that's coming in. Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Henry, Kyron Williams, Harrison, Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones. We got a couple Aaron Joneses. Hall, Godwin, Saquon, Hurts, Kamara, Pitts, Hurts. There's a couple Harrisons. It feels like Aaron Jones is the answer to the question here from you guys. A lot of Aaron Joneses. Now, all you have to do, browse to that game, touchdown scores, anytime TD on Aaron Jones, plus 125. But it's not plus 125 because you get a 50% boost just by opting into this. No brainer. That's the one we're going to take for this one. Aaron Jones to score a touchdown with a 50% profit boost. You just click a button on FanDuel and you have it. They have a 50% same game profit boost for any game today. Any game at all, 50% profit boost. You can use OddsShopper and you could use the Portfolio EV tool and immediately just look in the parlay builder, find the spots that have EV plays and grab yourself 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them, whatever you can find. Like I see right now, Jacoby Brissett passing yards over 159.5. Jordan Mason rushing yards under 82.5. I'm just naming 2 plays that I see in the same game. You could grab these games individually if you want. But in Niners and New England, we have 3 plays right now that you can take and make a 4% EV same game parlay. That does not include the boost. So we can actually build a good same game parlay on FanDuel, which is helpful because sometimes you can only get back to neutral, which I don't hate usually. But you really want to try to find a little bit more value. And on a day like today, you take Brissett over 159.5. You take Jordan Mason under 82.5 rushing yards. You take Antonio Gibson over 18.5 rushing yards. Build that as a same game parlay on FanDuel, and you get a 50% boost for it. These are the things that these books are giving us every single weekend. And it should be the first spot you start. Obviously, you should be hitting individual lines throughout the week as this stuff gets posted. By the way, OddsShopper is updating every single minute with all of these new lines. So you have time Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to find some value up to Sunday. But when you get to today, the first thing you should do when you sit down is take advantage of those individual spots. Otherwise, you're just costing yourself money. There's no reason to do that. These are the easiest things that you could possibly hit. So FanDuel is giving you countless promos. The Gronk Anytime TD, the same game parlay boost. There's a Sunday Night Football same game parlay boost. So not only can you take one for any game in the 1 o'clocks and 4 o'clocks, you could also hit it for tonight for Sunday Night Football, Bills and Ravens. Let's see what DraftKings has. Because it's not just FanDuel, it's every single one of these places. They want you to be on their site, and they're giving you promo after promo. NFL parlay boost on DraftKings, 4+ legs, regular parlay, same game parlay, either way. You can get 4 profit boosts on live drive props if you want today. So if you're sitting around watching Red Zone or watching whatever individual game you're watching, you can get 4 profit boosts to bet that game live. There's a no sweat token for Sunday Night Football tonight on DraftKings, Bills and Ravens. No sweat. There's 0 risk for you to take advantage of that play. Head to OddsShopper, find the best one you can find, or find the one that you like that might be close to neutral, and then take advantage of that no sweat play. There's an NFL touchdown score stepped up parlay. You can get up to 100% profit boost. We actually did this on OddsShopper Live on Friday. I go live Monday through Friday at noon, and we take a lap just like this through OddsShopper, through the pick'em sites, and we find all the value that we can find each and every day. We built an anytime touchdown parlay for all of the 1 o'clock games. We took one guy from each game to score a touchdown in that game, and we got a 100% profit boost on that play. Is it likely to win? No, it's not. But when you can double the odds, this is a bet that went from, I believe it was 200 to 1. I'm pulling it up right now just to make sure that I have the right numbers for you guys. I believe it was 200 to 1. It was. So we took 8 anytime TD plays that would have been 200 to 1 and boosted it to 400 to 1. $20 to win 8,000. Now, unfortunately for us, we're not, I shouldn't say this, we're not someone else in the industry that won $100,000 doing something comparable yesterday. But I'll take $8,000 for 8 touchdowns. We also got a super chat in from Chris Presto, official Chris Presto channel. He said, "Hi, Josh. I like Grant Calcaterra to score a touchdown today. With A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith out, do you think the Eagles will use 2 tight ends more? Thank you, Josh." Well, Chris, what we're going to do is a twofold thing here. I'm going to give you an answer, and then I'm going to give you a real answer. My answer is that I don't have a single clue if the Eagles are going to use 2 tight ends more or not today. Not a clue. Grant Calcaterra, I would have said was a baseball writer, but that is Craig. Didn't know that was a real person. The NFL is not my bag. My bag is using OddsShopper to acquire all the value that I could possibly find. That's why I love this product so much, because I don't need to know a damn thing about the NFL. But I do know that the Portfolio EV tool tracks every single bet we've ever recommended across every sport, including the NFL. And I can corner the market on those. So I can't help you in any way with whether or not they're going to use 2 tight ends today. But I can tell you this. At 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, I'm going to push this one over to Laffy and Ben, because I am very confident that our friend Dave Loughran is going to have some thoughts on whether the Eagles can go to a 2 tight end set more frequently today. I think that's the path that we want to take. I am going to hop over to DraftKings right now in the parlay builder. There's not a lot of EV out there right now. The best play that I think you guys can build around, if you want to build out same game parlays or any sort of stuff on the DK end, is going to be Kenneth Walker's rushing yards over 55.5. Because that play is at 1% EV, that would be the spot that I would try to start at right now, at least. This could change in 5 seconds. But for right now, I would try to use that Kenneth Walker play in parts of my boosts. Or to build out a same game parlay, I would look at that game, which obviously isn't going to be until Monday. But I would look at that game first because it has the most value you can get to. Waylon Jennings says, Josh, pick 6. Absolutely. So we can go to the Pick'em optimizer in the Portfolio EV tool and drop down from prize. Oh, nope. There's a specific DraftKings pick 6 one. I totally forgot about that. DraftKings pick 6 optimizer. How much value do we have if we go to the NFL and go to the 1 o'clock games? Ooh, we've got quite a bit of value on pick 6 right now. This is going to be the last thing we look at. We're going to turn this one over to Greg Ehrenberg in a minute or two, but we can take a look and see what sort of value we do have on pick 6. And it's a bunch. Chris Olave, under 5.5 receptions, is a 6% EV play right now. If you look at Chris Olave, Jordan Whittington, and Rashad White, those are the top 3 plays that are listed for pick 6. They look really good. And you can work your way down a little bit further too. Keenan Allen receptions. So we've got 3 plays at 59%, 1 at 61, 1 at 62. I'm a loser till I win the Millie says under on Olave. It's the best play that you can get to. We have the true odds right now on Olave's receptions at minus 165. This is pick 6. Those true odds only matter for your value. It's not as if that kind of line matters on DraftKings Pick 6. So if you want to put in a 3-pick card, you're getting really nice value on these 3 plays. And you can work your way down even further because the amount of value that's out there on Pick 6, Olave's at 6%, Justin Watson's at 4%, Whittington is at 3.5%, Greg Dortch is at 1.8%, Bailey Falter, if you want to go to the baseball side, has some value. But there's enough NFL value out there right now that you can build multiple DraftKings Pick 6 cards, and you're going to be looking at positive EV plays for today. You can make a case that DraftKings Pick 6 looks better than Prize Picks does. The only difference is that I think the 2 top plays on the Prize Picks side, I'm punching my microphone. The 2 top plays on the Prize Picks side coming from the EPL are better than the Chris Olave play. Joseph says, I'm exhausted. How am I going to make my lineup? You know what? I've got an idea for you. You can do this. You can stay tuned right now. I'm going to get out of here. We're going to turn this one over to Greg Ehrenberg. He is going to use our single lineup sim to build lineups for the next half hour. This is the best tool that we have anywhere. I think it's better than OddsShopper. I think it's better than our main sim. I think it's the best thing that we have. And I think it affects the most people. You can build your lineup by hand. You can have full control over everything you're putting into that lineup. You click one button, you get the expected ROI, the expected win rate, how often does it cash, how often is it a top 10 lineup. You get all of the advanced data. Maybe that first run doesn't come out all that well, and you think, okay, well, maybe this lineup's a little chalky. I'll take out one heavily chalky guy for maybe a guy that's more off the beaten path. All of a sudden, the ROI goes up. You can move stuff around, save that lineup, build the second one, build out the entire package of whatever you want to do today. Greg is going to do it for 30 minutes. He's going to break it down for the next half hour. So if you guys have lineups, I think Greg is going to be very happy to try and build them on the show if you want to drop them in there now. Or Greg's just going to give you the goods. But either way, you can sign up for that tool or OddsShopper by clicking the links in the description of this video. Don't sleep on it. Whether it's today, whether it's tonight for Showdown, Monday Night Football. I think there's 2 games again tomorrow. I think there's 2 Monday night games for like the next couple of weeks. These tools are perfect for you. We've got projections, ownership, top stacks, all that good stuff. I'm going to turn this one over to Greg Ehrenberg. I appreciate you guys hitting the like button. I'm checking right now to see how you did. What'd you get? 177. Perfect. You guys are so close. Hit the like button now. Get us up over 200 likes and let Greg know how much you love him. I'm going to get out of here. Good luck tonight, everybody. Win some money. Let's get those free squares and let's win our same game parlays. Peace.
Yeah, I can still see you, just can't hear. What is happening, everybody, and welcome to the lineup building portion of the NFL Live Before Lock show here. And Jordan is with me. Can't hear him. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear him. So it is going to be a silent, miming Jordan who's going to click the buttons on the screen and do what it is that I tell him to do in terms of what we're going to sort by and information we're going to look for. The only thing I'm going to ask of you guys while we're here is to like the video and to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to build some lineups in the single lineup sims. It is the newest tool that we have here at Stochastic. And if you guys want to sign up for that or any of the other tools that we have at Stochastic, link is down below in the YouTube description box. And any subscription you sign up for also comes with access to our Discord channel. And if you are a sub in our Discord channel, you have any questions for me over the course of me doing this show here, hit me up, at me in the Discord channel. I have it open and I will be on the lookout for any questions that come in. Jordan, you know where we usually start here is we go and we pull up the projections, which I'm going to ask you in the single lineup sims. We could go ahead and look at that, and we could start looking at who the top players are that are projecting best at each position. But also want to let you guys know something, because I'm not seeing a lot of content creators in the DFS space talk about this. The best contest that has existed for football this year is over on FanDuel. They have a $3 150 max GPP that is guaranteed overlay. I'm going to pull up some of the data on my phone right now. It has a $1 million prize pool. It pays out $100,000 to first place, and it is 300,000 entry. Or what is it? What was that number again? It has for entries. So 50% of the field gets paid out, and it is, of course, I just accidentally closed it right here. All right, here it is. All right, so yeah, it is a $1 million prize pool, 100,000 to first place, $3, 300,000 entries, which means what? Even if it fills, that's $900,000. So $100,000 guaranteed in overlay. If you guys are somebody who plays less than $450 per week in NFL action, which is probably a lot of you guys who are watching this show, this is the contest you should be entering. FanDuel is offering better contest selection than DraftKings this year. And I think that's the best way to build your bankroll, is to be playing in that contest if you guys are not already playing in it. So go ahead and check that out. It's a great contest. It's going to help you win some money. All right, let's go ahead and start looking at this week's slate and see some super chats are coming in. We got the one from Mike Forsetti here. We got one from Christian Smith. So we are going to see what it is that your guys' lineups are looking like that you want to build out for us. But first, let's just do a general overview of our top projected players for the slate. And Jordan, let's start at the quarterback position, and we'll look at the top projected quarterbacks. And what I really like about this particular slate is that we've got one really great game to target in the Cardinals and the Washington Commanders. There's value on both sides of the game. It is not this year, and this has been something that's been powered by our sims. I haven't been making as many game stacks with run backs this year as I have in previous years, but this is a particular game that I do think we're going to want to be getting a lot of exposure to on both sides. And if you look at the quarterbacks here, Kyler Murray, number one highest projected quarterback on the slate for us, 21.82 fantasy points. Number two, Jaden Daniels, 21.63 fantasy points. They are also the two most popular quarterbacks on the slate, but it's nothing insane. 15% ownership going to Kyler Murray, 12% to Jaden Daniels. It's not like super prohibitive in terms of their ownership. I love making stacks of that game. Only one other quarterback on the slate projected for north of 20 fantasy points for us. That is Jalen Hurts taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, one thing that is going to be difficult to figure out with Jalen Hurts is who do we want to stack him with? Because Jalen Hurts has no A.J. Brown this week. He's got no Devonta Smith, which means that it's going to be Dallas Goedert looking like one of the top tight end options. And then as far as wide receivers, it's a bunch of value, and like Paris Campbell's the one who projects the best points per dollar for us right now. But I think there's different ways that we could go in terms of stacking partners with Jalen Hurts. Let's look at the running backs next, Jordan. Yeah, so over at the running back spot now, you guys will see that we have three running backs that are projected for north of 20 fantasy points. That is Bijan Robinson taking on the New Orleans Saints. And Robinson's props are ridiculous this week. It was something that Lofty had pointed out to me when we were doing our lineup building show on Wednesday. We were looking at some of the initial data. Bijan Robinson has a yards, total yards, so rushing yards plus receiving yards prop. It's like 10 yards higher than any other player on this slate. So Bijan Robinson, at least sportsbooks really liking him. One of the reasons as well that he's projecting quite well for us He is one of the 3 running backs we have projected for north of 20 fantasy points. Joining him, Breece Hall, as well as Kyron Williams. We still have Jordan Mason projected really well. Mason at 18.28 fantasy points. But this is going to be the first time this year that I don't have like an insane amount of exposure to where the Sims are jamming in Jordan Mason for me. Still a good option, just not the guy who's going to be in like half my lineups like it's been on some previous slates. And then also towards the top, Alvin Kamara, 18.74 fantasy points. Saquon Barkley, 18.16 fantasy points. As far as the ownership at the running back position, the player who is most popular, if you wouldn't mind sorting by that there, Jordan, Najee Harris, $5,600. Jaylen Warren, he is out this weekend. So as a result, you've got Najee Harris as a really strong points per dollar running back. He's your best value back on the slate, and the field is recognizing it that way. 35% ownership going to Najee Harris, 16.74 fantasy points. Ownership looks more or less efficient. If you guys look at our boom bust tool, for instance, we have Najee Harris with a 33% chance to be in the optimal lineup this week. So that 35% ownership looks about fair. That's, I think, about the amount of exposure we're going to want to be getting to if you're playing a bunch of lineups this weekend. Wide receivers now, Jordan. And over at the wide receiver spot, this is the first time that we've had this year that the top end running backs are projecting higher than the top end wide receivers. You guys remember, we had 3 running backs projected for north of 20 fantasy points. However, at wide receiver, nobody's projected for more than 19 fantasy points, and just 4 wide receivers for 18 or more fantasy points. They are Rashee Rice, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Nico Collins. Nico Collins is somebody who we are definitely going to want to be taking looks at, and Stephon Diggs as well, because in that Houston game, Tank Dell is going to be out. And one of the things that was really difficult for me this entire year with the Houston Texans offense is now that we have Stephon Diggs in the mix for them, it was where were the targets going to end up going? Was Nico Collins, I think we all assumed he was going to be the number 1 wide receiver, but was he going to draw enough targets with all those? And by the way, Dalton Schultz also at tight end. Would he be drawing enough targets to be amongst the likes of, Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb as a top wide receiver? So far, the answer this year has been yes. And now you also have Tank Dell out of the mix. So Nico Collins looks really good this week. Also a little bit underpriced at $7,200 with Tank Dell out. If we go ahead now and sort by the ownership at the wide receiver position, Jordan, you guys will see that, yeah, it's a lot of the players who are projected the best in terms of the most overall total fantasy points showing up towards the top here in Rashee Rice, Nico Collins, Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison. He's benefiting from the absence of Trey McBride. And then, of course, Deontay Johnson. He was somebody who we built a bunch of lineups with when we were building our lineups on this show last week. And he was, I think, $4,800 or $4,900, if I remember correctly, last week. He had a big game. He looked much better with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Not that Deontay Johnson himself looked better, but it was just easier for him to produce when it was not Bryce Young under center anymore. And now Adam Thielen, him being out of the mix, that means more targets going to Deontay Johnson. So he's a great value option as well at $5,600, 25% ownership going there. Now, finally, the tight ends, Jordan. Yeah, and tight end a little bit interesting this week. It's been an absolute dog shit position so far this year. Been really difficult to get production out of, but a couple of value spots that really do stand out. One of them being Dallas Goedert, who you just have to think is going to draw the most targets of any of the pass catchers on the Eagles with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith out of the mix. But also, Brock Bowers is somebody who is also projecting really well this week, and that's because Devontae Adams is going to be out this week. He is dealing with a hamstring issue. Reportedly, he suffered it right at the end of one of the Raiders' final practices this week. So with him out and week to week, Brock Bowers looks really good. And then we've got Travis Kelce as the 3rd highest projected tight end. And who knows what to do with Travis Kelce this year, because he has been just wildly uninvolved in the Chiefs offense. So he's at 12.47 fantasy points. We've got George Kittle at 11.71 fantasy points. Those are your 4 tight ends projected for double-digit fantasy points. So that is a quick overview of who's projecting best and who we might want to be targeting for the slate. And now, let's build some lineups, Jordan. And right here, Matt Corsetti, he wants us to, he just put in a couple of suggestions here. And these are different kinds of lineups that I do like. He said Stroud +2, Kyler +2 with a run back, Daniels +1 with a run back. Yeah, those are all lineup builds that I'm going to be liking for this slate. And we don't have to build like all 3 of these like specifically. I'm just going to say that I do like all of them. But one that I want to start with is by making a CJ Stroud lineup, if you wouldn't mind, Jordan. Let's start with CJ Stroud. Yeah, so go CJ Stroud at quarterback. And now let's go Stephon Diggs as well as, so Stephon Diggs and then Nico Collins also. Yeah, so all these guys benefiting extra target share with Tank Dell being out. So that's for sure something that I'm going to want to have in a bunch of lineups is CJ Stroud combined with these two guys, or at the very least one of them. And now that we have some of this other value that's popping up, a little bit easier to pay up for Texan stacks. When Lofty and I were doing the show on Wednesday, we found it to be difficult. Tank Dell was also still in at that point in time. But now we are going to have to go a little bit cheaper at running back. So let's go Najee Harris in one of the running back positions, him benefiting from the absence of Jaylen Warren. And then at tight end, let's plug in Dallas Goedert. Yeah, Goddard. I'm pretty sure Goddard's going to end up being the tight end I get the most exposure to, because I just don't know where else we're going to be getting any kind of real significant targets in the Eagles passing game. There are going to be cheap guys like Paris Campbell I take a chance on, but the one that I have the most confidence overall is going to be Dallas Goedert. Now, as far as the other wide receivers go, and let's see, we've got $4,600 in average salary remaining. So let's go Deontay Johnson in one of the wide receiver spots. Okay, Deontay Johnson. Let's plug in a cheap defense now, just so that we could get that locked in and we'll know what kind of other salary we have to play with. Plug in the Rams defense for $2,800. And the Rams are going to be taking on the Bears. Defense, not a position that I like to think a whole ton about. Like whatever the Sims give me when I'm running our data and whatnot is usually what I play. But the Rams do make sense this weekend. They're cheap. They're playing the Bears. And what you like about a defense going up against the Bears this year is even though Caleb Williams is going to have his big games, like a lot of the best lineups last week had Caleb Williams because he threw for like 360 yards, is he is going to be attempting a lot of passes. And that's how defenses score fantasy points. Sacks, turnovers, and the only way you could generally come across those is going to be from more passing opportunities. If a team runs the ball a lot, it's just hard to score fantasy points as a defense. So not say the Rams defense is particularly great, but they're going to have good opportunity against the Bears today. So it gives us a little bit more than $5,000 in average salary remaining. So we're going to have to go not too expensive for our other spots here. Not going to be able to pay up for another running back in this lineup. So let's go to, I guess let's plug in Jordan Mason. I still like Jordan Mason, not quite as much this week as other weeks, but still certainly viable. And that is going to give us what, $3,400 left? All right. So for $3,400, just whoever projects the best, probably Paris Campbell, right? Yeah, whoever projects the best with the salary we have remaining. And just because he's so cheap, I don't hate having Dallas Goedert and Paris Campbell in the same lineup, even if it doesn't have Jalen Hurts. $3K. Paris Campbell could go out. He could catch 5 passes for 50 yards. Perfectly acceptable game at $3K and could end up in winning lineups like that. So, yeah, no real issues with that there. And let's see. What is this looking like? Yeah, solid lineup, 115.7% sim ROI. So there, first lineup there, CJ Stroud double stack, and we were able to make it work, even though some of those wide receivers and Collins and Diggs are pretty expensive combined together. No real problems, though. Let's see. We got a super chat from Christian Smith. He says, good morning, Greg. Can we sim this one out? He wants to know Stroud, Harris, Brian Robinson, Collins, Diggs, Kirk, Elijah Higgins, Mason, Panthers defense. And then he says, thanks. Yeah, Brian Robinson, also another running back who's going to be looking really good this week with Austin Eckler out. So another one that I think we should really highly be considering. So if you wouldn't mind plugging this one in, Jordan, from Christian Smith. Yeah, and this is, once again, another Stroud lineup, but just a single stack with, oh, no, never mind. He has Collins and Diggs in this one as well. So it's another Stroud double stack. I'm pretty confident this one's going to sim out well, just looking at the different options here. We'll confirm it for him, run it through, and we'll see what it ends up looking like. And let's see if there's any questions from Discord. Not at the moment. So, Jordan, that lineup is Stroud at QB. Harris and Brian Robinson at running back. It's actually very similar to the lineup that we had just built. Collins, Diggs, and then he has Kirk as a run back. By the way, I don't think you need a run back in these Texan stacks. You could. I'm not saying you can't, but you don't need to force it in. If you don't love somebody on the Jack, like there's nobody I love from Jacksonville today. Kirk is probably the best run back option. Maybe Strange at tight end. So I'll have some lineups of the run back, but the majority of my Texan stacks are not going to have a run back from the Jaguar side of the game. Tight end, Elijah Higgins. Type in HI. Yeah. Higgins, viable, cheap tight end option. He should be starting and getting the majority of the snaps in place of Trey McBride. Then he's got Jordan Mason at the flex and the Panthers defense. Oh, so you got the caps lock turned on now. Get angry when you're plugging in the Panthers defense. You should get angry when you plug in the Panthers defense, though. Yeah, I'll guarantee right now this is going to sim out well. This one's going to sim out well. Then Nathan Perkins in the chat says, Moss seems like a good pivot from Harris. Thoughts? Yeah, I have a couple of lineups that have him in it, in Zach Moss. I don't really love him as a pivot off of Najee Harris. I would rather play Harris. If I am going to pivot off of Harris, I think the answer is Brian Robinson. Robinson's also going to be somewhat popular, but not quite as popular as Najee Harris. We currently have Brian Robinson projected for about half the ownership of Najee Harris. So I think that's the pivot point to make there, is going Brian Robinson instead of Najee Harris. Let me think anybody else. Chuba Hubbard is another potential pivot off of Najee Harris. Hubbard is just $100 more expensive. Yeah, I would say those are the two that I like the most. Zach Moss, not that he's unplayable, but of my top 150 lineups I built out this morning, Zach Moss only came up in 2 of them. And yeah, solid looking lineup there, 57% for Christian Smith. We've got another one here from Eat My Shorts. He wants us to plug in his lineup for DraftKings. And then I'm going to build out some FanDuel lineups as well, Jordan. So let's plug in this one for Eat My Shorts. Then we'll go over to FanDuel and build some FanDuel lineups. And yeah, it is Justin Fields at QB. Then we've got Chuba Hubbard and Brian Robinson at running back. Nico Collins, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. I know Pickens, one of Lofty's favorite contrarian options this week, or at least it was when we were doing some content together a couple of days ago. Maybe that's changed now that there's been some additional value that's opened up at wide receiver. But Lofty did talk me into George Pickens a little bit when I was talking with him the other day. And Fields has also had a solid start to the year. And then it was, yeah, there we go. You already plugged in the rest of the players. While this lineup is simming out, I also want to let you guys know that if you haven't checked out OddShopper, our betting site, we're offering a free trial. It is going to be 1 week, totally free trial. So no catch. If you want to just, even if you don't want to bet, you just want to see what's behind the paywall for our tools and figure out if it's for you or not. 1 week, totally free. That offer is going to be expiring today at 1 p.m. at kickoff. So if you want to try it out, link is down below in the YouTube description box. Promo code is 50, 1 week, totally free. So come check out the betting stuff we have over at OddShopper. And yeah, 9% sim ROI for Eat My Short. So not the highest projected lineup in the world, but it's serviceable, right? It's not a lineup that looks terrible or anything like that. If you were going to potentially improve it, I'd say maybe go a little bit cheaper than the Browns defense. And then you could upgrade T. Higgins to another wide receiver that's projecting better in like the high 6K or low 7K range. I think that's probably one way you could improve it, because what's the price point on the Browns defense? Browns defense is, yeah, $3,500. So pretty expensive there. I think that's one way that you could definitely go ahead and improve that lineup. But let's go ahead and go on to the FanDuel side of things, Jordan. Let's build out FanDuel lineups, because I told people at the top that I think FanDuel's been better to play on for the early part of the season because of that $3 contest with guaranteed overlay. So I want to make sure that we build some lineups for people, at least one lineup here, before we head out, and give people a good idea of like a core group of players to be building those FanDuel lineups around. And we haven't made a game stack of the Cardinals-Washington game. So let's plug in Kyler Murray at QB. Kyler Murray projected to be a little bit less popular than Jaden Daniels over on FanDuel. But also ownership a little bit more spread out at the QB position on FanDuel. 10% ownership going to Kyler Murray, 12% to Jaden Daniels here. So even a little bit less than what we have on DraftKings. So we'll go Kyler Murray at quarterback, and then running back. Let's go with Brian Robinson in one of the running back spots, $7,300. Let's go Najee Harris as well at $6,600. And this is one of these spots too. I mentioned it a little bit at the top when we started building lineups. I haven't been forcing run backs into my lineups this year, but just because there is so much value in this Arizona-Washington game, I'm just naturally going to be getting a lot of game stacks and run back options within the lineups that I build on both FanDuel and DraftKings, because they're just players I want to be rostering on both sides of the game. Now at wide receiver, let's go Marvin Harrison as a stack option. And let's see. Deontay Johnson is only $6,200 on FanDuel. There are a bunch of really good-looking wideouts in the like 5 and 6K range on FanDuel. Deontay Johnson, Drake London's only $6,600 on FanDuel. George Pickens is $6,100. Michael Wilson is $5,300. So if you want to make a double stack with Kyler Murray, which we do right here, Jordan, plug in Michael Wilson at $5,300. Yeah, so get Michael Wilson at $5,300 with Marvin Harrison. Harrison's a little more expensive at $8,200, but still, I love him with Trey McBride out. And also modest ownership to Marvin Harrison. We've got him at 14% owned over on FanDuel, so nothing really crazy there. And that is giving us, all right, still a decent amount of remaining salary left. Tight end. My favorite overall tight end on FanDuel this week, it is going to be Brock Bowers. So Bowers also not crazy popular on FanDuel, pulling 10% ownership. And one thing about Dallas Goedert that makes him better on DraftKings than FanDuel, FanDuel really aggressively priced up Dallas Goedert, not to the point where it makes him unplayable or anything, obviously, but at $7,500, he's just not the same priority for me on FanDuel that he is on DraftKings. So tight end, let's go Brock Bowers. Okay. Bowers, and then let's go for defense. Just put in, let's see, what's like a relatively cheap defense on FanDuel. Just go Panthers D, they're 3K. Okay. And now we've got, what is that, 6,300 left? Whichever player projects the best that we could fit in there, Jordan. I can't exactly see what the number is on the screen. Or is that 80? Whatever the number is. Whoever projects the best of the players in our projections that fits into the lineup. Plug them in, Jordan. Okay, it was 81 there. All right, and now we got a couple of super chats that came through. Phil Senzig wants to know, how do I feel about a Andy Dalton, Deontay Johnson, and Chuba Hubbard all in one lineup? It's not my favorite build for this slate. Not that, and this lineup came out really good, 176.2% sim ROI. But the question from Phil Senzig, how do I feel about Andy Dalton, Deontay Johnson, Chuba Hubbard all in one lineup together? I don't have an issue with it, except for the fact that, like, if you're playing a bunch of lineups and not just one of the lineups you had amongst your portfolio, I would say, cool, it's fine to have that combination of players together. But if you're only playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, I wouldn't have one of those lineups being Andy Dalton, Deontay Johnson, Chuba Hubbard lineup. There's just better spots to be going at this slate at quarterback, like going to Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, or building a CJ Stroud lineup and taking advantage of the value opportunities by combining him with the pass catchers with Tank Dell out. So I don't hate it, but it's not what I would play in single entry, and it's not what I would play if I was playing limited lineups. And then Nathan Perkins says, what sim ROI do you ideally want for lineups? Kind of a tough question to answer, because the real answer is, like, anything positive is generally fine. But if anything you build in the single lineup sim, I'd say like 50% or higher is something that's probably going to be a very good lineup. Now, the one caveat to that is that every slate is going to be a little bit different depending on how good value options are. If there's any really good leverage plays where maybe lower owned that are giving you leverage off of a higher owned player on their same team. Like, for instance, let's say there's a scenario where Nico Collins is projected to be really popular this week, and maybe Stephon Diggs was projected comparably, but only had like 5% ownership. Then you could have super high sim ROI lineups and ones that had Stephon Diggs. So it's not like a one size fits all answer. It's the same. It's like, what is your goal fantasy point projection for an individual slate? It's hard to answer that question because if there's a bunch of value on an individual slate, the amount of fantasy points your lineups are going to be projected for are going to be different than a slate that doesn't have a lot of value. So it's kind of a moving target. It's always going to be different in terms of what the best sim ROI is. But yeah, like anything 50% or higher in general is going to be looking pretty good there. So just a few minutes to go here. Let me make sure that there was no other questions that ended up coming across here. Yeah, nothing else in Discord. So yeah, if you guys haven't done yet, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, we're sponsored here by Bet365. If you guys have not signed up at Bet365, really easy way to start building your bankroll. You get signed up using the link that we have down below in the YouTube description box. All you have to do is place a $10 deposit over at Bet365. And then you place a $5 bet on anything, whatever it is you like, over at Bet365. And they're going to give you $200 in bet credits. So really simple way to start building your bankroll. And then also a new deal we have with Bet365 is that when you do sign up with our link, you could then get 1 month free access to anybody's insider package over our Tails Marketplace. So if you guys want bets from Lofty or bets from Ben or bets from Eric or bets from Matt Kajeski, all the guys who are going to be on the show the rest of the day, they'll have individual packages on our Tails Marketplace and get 1 month of any of them of your choice for free when you sign up at Bet365 with our link. If anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. And that is going to do it for me today here, guys. But don't go anywhere. We got lots more football content coming up. Ben and Lofty, they're going to be breaking down every single game, going game by game, all the matchups, injury news for all the games. They're going to be on for the next 90 minutes. And then Gajeski and Eric, they're going to be on for 90 minutes, giving you any final updates, exposures, ownership updates. So go check out all of that as well. But guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Good luck with your lineups today. And I'll see you back here next weekend. Peace.
We are back for another edition of the Stochastic Hall of Fame, first one of the NFL season. And my God, do we have a lot of submissions. So many to the point where we actually have to split this into 2 Hall of Fame videos. Jordan Klein working his magic behind the scenes. We'll get this one out on social and on shows, and then we'll have another one on Monday. So if you don't see yourself, now you know why. And if you don't see yourself because you're not in the Hall of Fame, it means you're probably not rocking the Stochastic avatar. And all you got to do to get involved, go to stochastic.com/HOF. Download one of those beauties you see on the screen. Use it wherever it is you play. And when you place top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, tweet us your wins at StochasticHOF, preferably with a nice message. And the screenshot has to be in there as well. You can win gold, silver, bronze, a beautiful ring in a spinning display case, completely engraved to commemorate your big win. And you can win multiple times every single year. So if you're not doing it yet, grab that avatar and get going. Here we go. And we kick this week off with 4 Ring of Honor recipients. The Gronk of Golden Valley. Still can't believe this is real. Huge shout out to Lafayette and Matt Kajeski for putting me on this lineup right before lock. Wouldn't have binked it without the goats. Yeah, Britton Covey season, baby. $101,000 for the Gronk of Golden Valley. And as if I recall correctly, 2 stochastic avatars up top in that millie. And Barry, of course, my biggest DFS win comes on one of the sports I know least about. Sometimes not knowing names, but numbers instead works to your advantage. Just make sure there's some damn good numbers. 20K for the jaded one in tennis. How about that? Jackson Blake, shout out to Stochastic for the great tools and data they provide. 50K for Jackson Blake. Huge, man. As baseball continues on. And Tommy Stokey, too. Baseball season ain't over till it's over, but it can be over now. See you tomorrow, football. Go Titans. All right. 25K for Tommy. 4 Ring of Honor recipients and a ton of gold members as well. That means 3-time wins, no matter the entry fee. As long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and you're rocking the avatar, you're getting the month of Sims Max All Access, $550 value, like Chuck Jones here got the elusive first place with a Sunday lineup only the Sims tool could have produced. 2,000 for Chuck and another 2,400 for Elway's Army. The guy's crushing, stays crushing. You guys are the best. Thanks for all your help, and the Sims are crushing. Brett Lindsay, I will take it for my first try at college football. This one counts, correct? Yes, it does count. You are into the gold tier. And so is Andrew. I believe this will be stochastic gold. Now to use those Sims to chase that platinum tier in NFL. Huge. Dion O'Neal, Friday Night Fun with single game top 3 finish. Gold tier for Dion O'Neal. Gold tier for Ugly 8 game. Another victory on a massive field mini-max. The data tools and staff at Stochastic are the best in the business. Sims Max is the way to go for success. We enter the silver tier as well. This is where Ugly 8 game was before that last one. Had a few more wins to wrap up the golf season, Jazz Razz season, and one of them qualifies for Stochastic Hall of Fame just in time for football. They are hot or they're going hot? They are hot. Okay, Jordan's mic isn't working, so he's screaming at us, but we can't hear anything.
It also, even though I can't hear him, it seems like he's not actually talking.
I don't think he is.
No, he's not.
Oh, hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Deeper Dive Week 4 12-game slate. I was just thinking about this now. Like, you have the 2 games for Monday night. But then next week, we finally hit the buys, dude. You get 4 teams on bye next week. So
good.
Yeah, I think we have a doubleheader Monday, which means probably have like an 11-game slate, 10-game slate maybe next week. That's kind of sweet.
Those are the best. A couple games makes all the difference. So I like this, though. 12 games isn't anything we can't handle.
Oh, no, absolutely. By the way, happy birthday to me, apparently. I don't know why he does this. March 26th, put it in your calendar. Plan B smoothies. I appreciate you, but I don't because you're throwing people off. Not my birthday. March 26th, mark it in the calendar. When that rolls around, feel free to throw me all the birthday wishes you can think of. Until then, happy to have you guys with us. If you don't mind, take a single second, hit that thumbs up, atone for your, look, it's Sunday morning. Atone for your sins here. This wonderful weekend morning. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. By the way, we're less than 500 away from 100K.
Oh, yeah. It could happen on this very show. Who knows? Yeah, we are marching towards it. Very cool stuff. I mean, 100,000 people. That is pretty wild.
I think by next week we get there. Like by next Sunday's show, I think we're there.
Depends how we do right now. It's our moment. We got to get them subs.
That's true.
100,000 likes.
If you sub and you hate it, we will gladly refund your misery and you can just unsubscribe. That's an old AA saying. Gladly refund your misery. Just leave.
I had to sneeze and then I couldn't. That doesn't bode well.
Yes, stare at the lights.
No,
Does that not work for you?
I don't know. I don't try to burn my retinas when I need to sneeze.
No, instead you sneeze in your sleep and literally slice your retinas.
Well, it doesn't matter. I already told you. I'm already walking wounded. You should have seen the gash I took out of my tongue.
By chewing food.
It was insane. It wasn't a joke. I'm not even joking. It was insane.
Ben DMs me at like 7 a.m. going, motherfucker, I basically just, like someone cut your knife or tongue with a knife.
It was like that. If you go watch over on Odd Chopper, my Ben's Best Bet of the Day video from 2 days ago, I'm literally like, all right, I like Rutgers today. They're a good team. That's it. Enjoy. See you later. Because it hurt that badly to talk. it was insane.
Well, the mouth heals quickly, they say. So hopefully you're on the road to recovery. Anyway, happy to have you guys here. I mean that. We love doing this show. Ben and I have been doing this since like 2016 now. So it's like our 8th year doing this show. Of course, it was on FanVice before that. But you ready to dive into it, man? 12 games to jump into here.
Great slate. A lot of mixed bag, too. We got all sorts of interesting wrinkles to this slate.
Yeah. Big Top. Yes. Big Top Dog. Chubb will definitely play this season. No doubt about it. One more question I have for you, and then we get started. Odds on 1,000 likes. We're at 453 right now.
Minus 135.
By the way, I put it at minus 20,000 last week, and it should have been it should have been off the board. That's how spot on I was.
What do you mean? I've been spot on. I have been spot on with the number.
We hit it with 20 minutes to go. And you were spot on?
Maybe I don't remember.
No, apparently you don't.
Okay.
Anyway, help us get there. You put it at minus 130. All right, so slight favorite to get there.
Favorite.
Let's talk Philly. Pittsburgh and Indy. As you can see, all the games on the left side of the screen. If you guys have questions, hit us up. We see him. Jordan's mic isn't working, but he can always DM us if he comes across those super chats. Pittsburgh's a 2.5-point favorite, 40-point total. From everything I saw this week, you know, everyone was like, "Hey, you're an idiot if you bet on Pittsburgh." Like every sharp has to bet Indy this week. And, you know, I get that. It's like Mike Tomlin as the dog is where he really thrives as a short dog when no one expects it and all that, Ben. But there's also a part of me that goes, Anthony Richardson has made such incomprehensible mistakes that I'm not exactly confident going, yeah, you know what? This is just the spot for the Colts against this Pittsburgh defense. So I know Pittsburgh's got injuries on the O-line, Jalen Warren, whatever. That doesn't matter nearly as much in the run game. But Anthony Richardson has not looked good.
No, I would know. I mean, it did ultimately work out, but I bet the Colts last week. And I watched them try to give the game away. They just couldn't because the Bears are equally at times inept. But this is yeah, I mean, I do lean Indy here at home. But when I look at it, it's funny. I lean to them to win the game. What do I possibly get into on the fantasy side? Almost nothing. I mean, we talked about on the first look show, Pittman has been a ghost. There's going to be a time to buy low. I'm not sure it's today. I have no interest in Richardson. I really did like Jonathan Taylor last week, and he actually really responded. Pair of touchdowns. He's always playable, but I like other pay up backs. So it's funny, even though I like Indy in the game, I'm more interested in the Pittsburgh side when I'm building my lineups.
Isn't that funny how betting is so different than DFS in that sense?
That's what I love, though, because it's like I can get exposure to Indy without having to force in exposure to my lineups.
Sure. Yeah, like it's hard to get to Jonathan Taylor today, but if Indy wins, Taylor probably has to be pretty good.
I might bet him again anytime touchdown. I did it last week. And
I don't hate that. Pittman's tough to get to. This guy might be 3K by week 6 at this rate.
I'm going to start buying. I just don't think it's against Pittsburgh.
You have to start buying eventually because there's no way like Alec Pierce continues to be the only guy that can do anything on this team. It's impossible. Mitchell, obviously a young rookie with some talent, but I do like the other side. You already know I like George Pickens. I think I'll be overweight on him, and it's not going to be hard to be overweight on George Pickens. That's the other thing. I mean, I think Pickens is going to be for sure single-digit ownership, so I have no problem getting a little bit over the field on him. You know why I like him? Because one, it's a pretty good matchup. Like this Colts defense is painfully average. They're also they've allowed the second most total yards in the entire league, Ben. So it's not like I'm just flying blind here. They've managed to limit touchdowns, but they've also faced Malik Willis and the Packers, right? It's not like they faced a murderer's row of offenses here. They faced Caleb Williams last week. They gave up 400 plus yards to that team, and they just managed to keep him out of the end zone enough to win that game. And then they gave up 28 to Houston, got beat up pretty bad. But no, they're allowing on the season. Where is it here? Total yards. Yeah, 390 yards per game. I think Justin Fields and Pickens as a skinny stack is really interesting here. I was just going to say Pickens, Fields, obviously Harris is the popular one. And I like Najee too with Jalen Warren. Now, he's not super efficient, but he'll grind and he'll get a ton of touches. All three of those guys to me, I have really no problems with, even if you wanted to mention Freiermuth at a weak tight end position.
Yeah, you really hit exactly what I'm kind of doing there. Pickens, he's a player. The thing I like about Justin Fields, you know, there's a lot of ways to be different. Even if you took all the lineups that had Justin Fields, they would not overlap as much as they would with the statue quarterback, where it's like, okay, like Stroud, Stroud, you're either playing him with Nico and Diggs or one of them probably. There's really no other way to do it in my opinion. But with Fields, you could be unique. You get the tight end in there. You could go skinny. Then Najee's going to be, I don't know, maybe the most popular player on the slate. And it's like you said, it's easy to see why. They're not going to abandon the run. He's going to be busy. But for the Steelers not being a prolific offense, the price points on their players put them firmly in play for me.
I'm with you 100%. And, truthfully, if Pickens doesn't work this week, I'll just go back to him next week against the Cowboys. And if that doesn't work, I'll go back to him the next week against the Raiders. You know why? Because I think George Pickens is a legitimately good, like very good receiver that hasn't had good quarterback play. Like, realistically, if you would put George Pickens on a team with a top, 12 quarterback, you're referring to him as one of the best wide receivers in the league, I think.
Yeah, there's a handful of guys that I think Portland Sutton, Pickens, Terry McLaurin, who maybe he's about to get that. There's a couple guys that I think could be superstars in the right system. And this isn't the right system, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have some utility sub 6K.
Well, what's interesting is him and Fields actually have a really nice connection this year. I mean, they're 3 for 3 on deep attempts, on deep balls for 100 yards. There was another one in week 2 where Fields beat Patrick Surtain. Fields dropped it right in the bucket for 50 yards, and it got called back on a bad call that I don't even think affected the play. He had a touchdown in that game that got called back as well. He had 85 receiving yards against the Falcons, and the Falcons have done a great job in the secondary in limiting big plays. So you look at last year, he had 1,140 receiving yards in the regular season with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. So say like this guy's super talented, and Deontay Johnson was on that team. So I'm willing to just keep taking those shots if people aren't going to play him. That's really what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, again, and it's always tricky with those guys it's a balancing act between like just continuing to buy and buy and buy, and also not just giving up with the high variance nature of them. So for me, Pittsburgh's a pretty good team to attack. You can go through the air. Obviously, again, Najee's going to be very, very popular just because of the volume, and that's about it for me for the entire game.
I kind of like the over in this game.
Well, do you really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that would go a long way to getting these guys. I mean, obviously, it's not a high number just given the pace and whatnot, but doesn't take much. And it's funny, chat, a lot of anti-Najee love in chat.
Yeah, I get it. He's just not great, but he's going to get a lot of work.
Listen, it never feels like I'm not super excited to play Najee, and I'm not jamming him by any stretch, but I'm going to have a healthy amount for sure.
I think if you like the Colts, you should like the over. That's the way I look at this game. I really do, because the Steelers have been winning games by just completely
doing nothing. Yeah.
And not allowing any scoring whatsoever. Like if you look at the game script and the flow of those spots, the Steelers win these games by not allowing any points, right? So like if you think the Colts are going to win, it's not going to be by way of their defense, because the Steelers go out, if they score 20 points, most games they win recently against the bad offenses they faced. You know what I mean?
No, that's fair. I mean, obviously the Steelers have a blueprint of what they want to do. I just think for me, this game is actually on both sides too. And we will definitely try to get more FanDuel in the show. Najee's going to be really popular over there too. He's 6,600. He just grades out, not priced to where he would be because of Jaylen Warren.
Yobi Trice with a super chat. Thanks, dude. Patterson will take over Warren's spot. Harris sucks. No, I don't think they're going to. If that's your idea though, you also have to consider the fact that Cordarrelle Patterson was already getting opportunities. Like last game, he had nine looks. He had 5 targets and 4 carries. Overall in the season, he has 13 total touches. So I think he'll get more, but I don't think he just, totally supplants Warren here. I think you're going to see upwards of 20 touches for Najee at that price point, which is why he's getting ownership for sure. Luis, what's up, dude? Lewis? Yeah, Lewis, dude. Can you reference FanDuel in your plays, please? Some of us don't play DraftKings. Sure. Matt Sheets, what's up, Coach S? You guys rock. So close to Millie with Red Rifle last week. That would be really legendary. People, trust me, use the paid tools and combine with the game theory. Coach S, yeah, man. Both of those combined, in unison are going to take you a long way. I'll tell you how to check the tools out in a minute, or just the link in the description or in chat will take you there. Weekly, monthly, whatever you want to do, any tools you want, whether it's the Sims, ownership, player projections, top stack tool, single lineup sim, where you can build out your lineups by hand and get instant feedback when we sim them against the field. All of that stuff down there, no matter what style of player you are, whether you're only playing a few bucks a week or you're playing a lot, we've got something for all of you, whether it's a week or a month. And if you have any questions, hit us up. Also, every subscription comes with access to the premium Discord. So jump in there and learn and join the community on top of it. Sharon, Diggs or Collins on FanDuel? Thanks, fellas. What is the pricing difference on FanDuel between Diggs and
Nico's 77 and Diggs is 71. I
Collins?
would rather have Collins. We also had a super chat about Rashee Rice or Collins. I would still rather have Collins. I like the Texans today.
That line's moving against them too.
People believe in my Jaguars.
It doesn't even matter to me. The more that happens, the more you have shootout potential here, because Jags defense isn't just stopping Houston.
No, like the Jaguars could win the game, and that I wouldn't be like, oh man, I'm glad I didn't play Nico Collins. I might want more of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark said Lane's out now for the Birds. Yeah, anyone going to fade Barkley? It's a big problem, but Jeff Stoutland can figure things out. Best offensive line coach in the game. Obviously, I know their record without Lane. The biggest issue for me is that Vita Vea is expected to play. If he were out, that would have been a massive deal. Massive deal. I would have liked Barkley a lot more. We're getting to that game right now, Ben. The Eagles are 1.5 still. 1.5 point favorites. Kind of surprising to me. This feels like a pick 'em now. Maybe even lean Tampa with all of these injuries to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard situation. I'm not betting this game, so I will leave it to smarter people than me. I don't see an edge on either side because there's just so many unknowns. You mentioned the injuries, but let's not forget, because everybody is so, I think Cincinnati is, because they were on Monday, is kind of the talk. Denver went in and destroyed Tampa at home. Like, that's not getting enough buzz than it probably should have, just because there's been so many upsets. So both of these teams have some issues, but you mentioned it. Obviously, Philly's going to be a key piece to this slate, just because when you start removing key pieces, there's not that much production left. And if Saquon is not overly effective, that means that Goddard and cheap wide receivers are going to have to play a role.
I'm really hesitant to go to Dallas Goddard.
Really?
He's Dallas Goddard's good, right? But he's not, like, you look at last week and he had that massive game. For what it's worth, that was a career game from Dallas Goddard, okay? Career high in both yards and receptions. And that big play at the end of the game, you had two defenders running into each other. I think it was 3rd and 16, right? And he ends up picking up, what did he pick up? Like 60 on that or 50 on that or something. It's not that I don't like Dallas Goddard. The tight end position is bad, but he's just exponentially more popular than any other tight end.
Yeah, it's a weak position. There's no doubt about it. I'm just interested in, and again, on FanDuel, he's sub 10%, which is nice. Now he's priced up a little more. What do you think is the rest of, like, is Dotson getting involved in your lineups?
I've just seen how this offense works and how they try to get cute and how they try to do something different than what the opponent expects. Like, you saw this 2 weeks ago against Atlanta, where, Dallas Goddard's props were all up, all of that. And it ended up being Britton Covey getting like 7 targets in that game, 8 targets or something like that, all kind of low value targets, but they were using him a ton. They just do such odd stuff. Calcaterra got some stuff early on. This isn't to say that Dallas Goedert doesn't get used. It's that if he's going to be a 20% owned tight end, which isn't crazy, but on a 12-game slate, it's not low. And there's no other tight end getting more than 8% right now. Like, we have him so much more popular than every other tight end on this slate. I'm just not convinced that he smashes. He's just not that type of player, despite what we saw last week. Maybe I'm off base. Tell me if you think I'm wrong here. I'm very happy to listen.
No, I mean, I'm gonna kind of split the difference. I'm indifferent to him. I don't want him to define the slate for me. I'm more worried about what do I do outside of Goddard? Like Paris Campbell, it's not someone I feel great about, but he makes building so much easier when you get that flat three guy at wide receiver. It's really opening up a lot. And I'm not getting to Saquon a lot. I'm certainly not getting to Dotson. I'm not really getting to much Tampa. I think you can just continuously go to Chris Godwin because he's just a really good player. I think he's perpetually underpriced. But to me, the key to this team is who, if anyone, steps up for the void at wide receiver.
Right. I get it. Kick's good. Said Hurts is going to pepper Goddard again. Who else is he going to throw to? I get it. I get that that's the prevailing sentiment, Ben, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not lost on me. What I'm saying is I think Philly tries to do something different. I do. Like I've seen this team play a lot. And if you're on the other side, please. I mean, and I'm going to have Dallas Goddard. I have to.
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
I'm playing a bunch of lineups. I'm going to have Dallas Goddard. You've seen it. You guys, I'm looking at you right now. All of you. We've all seen the Dallas Goddard chalk spots just go catastrophically. Like it's maybe I'll just PTSD'd on Dallas Goddard, Ben. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna come in, I'd say slightly over the field. That's really my only take on this.
All right, then how are you? I know you kind of talked about it. By the way, guys, don't worry. There's some spots we'll get through pretty quickly here. I'm not too worried about that. But this is one we got to at least the pass catchers without Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. Goddard is the clear number one that everyone's going to be looking to for sure. I think I'd probably put Paris Campbell. I think I'd have to put Paris Campbell as the guy. It's gross. They just elevated him from the practice squad along with John Ross. But, you can't have any confidence in Wilson here. I also think it's perfectly fine if you just don't play the receivers from this game.
Oh, yeah, you don't need to mess around, but there's not that many sub 4K guys that are going to grade out even remotely well, and there's basically no 3K guys, flat three that I'm seeing outside of Paris Campbell.
Yeah, he's the best option here among them. There's just zero chance I can pay for Jahan Dotson. If that burns me, I don't care. But
oh no, I'm not playing him either.
You can't. They have no faith in him. They don't want to use him even when they've had injuries. So like they elected to go with Britton Covey over him in week 2 as far as target share. Last question: what do you do with Hurts and Barkley? I think Hurts is tough to get to on a slate with a lot of great quarterbacks across the board.
Both of them are, honestly. I only asked you, we hopped on right after Greg finished up, and in that like 2-minute window, I said the only question I asked you is what are you doing with Saquon? And I'm just not really getting this. It's just really hard to pay a premium. You mentioned, the Tampa front when it's firing on all cylinders is no joke.
No, at all.
So you're paying $8K for that? I don't know. I certainly have more Breece Hall. I certainly have more Bijan. He's a great player, amongst the best, but no, I'm not getting to the big weapons on the Eagles.
I think Bucks D is viable.
Let's see that. What is that? Let's see what's going on here. 27. Yeah, they're viable.
Todd Bowles knows how to really confuse Jalen Hurts, dude. We've seen it multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly saw it last year.
Yeah. I think this is kind of one of those teams where it's just, this is not a great spot. But we also saw it. We also saw it before, Ben. We saw it in the playoffs when he was the defensive coordinator for Tampa. Like he literally went in and goes, Jalen Hurts, he told his team, Jalen Hurts can't read a defense. And they slaughtered him.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles were a mess. It's just, you mentioned it. It's not.
No, this was years ago, not last year. This was this was when Brady was still there. Anyway, I'm just saying, I think 2,700 is not crazy.
No, that's definitely not crazy. I was more just looking at through the lens of, do you want to play Jalen Hurts? And it's not even anything that he's doing. There's just so many good quarterback options. And I found pricing somewhat premium today. Like I needed the money.
Yeah. Justin, Tampa Bay Rusty is good names on paper, but has been absolutely gashed this year. Again, missing Vita Vea is a huge deal, and he's coming back. He's one of the best run stoppers in the game. They gave up 139 rushing yards to the Lions. That's not even a lot for the Lions. That's a modest game if you're the Lions run game. Either way, what are you doing with the Tampa Bay side? Bucky Irvin and Rachaad White both expected to play. My concern there is that Bucky Irvin's he's better than Rachaad White. I've been saying that. And I know we disagree, but I think we can agree that that workload is going to become more and more shared, shall we say, in the backfield.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I don't have much with Tampa. I'm not even close to getting to like Baker stacks this week. Just really not for me. You can always, if you want to tell me that you have a 5% on Mike Evans, who's not getting a lot of love, if he pops up in my sim runs, so be it. The only guy that I feel really good about is Chris Godwin. He's just reliable. Price is reasonable on both sides. It's going to be more popular than the rest, but nothing crazy. He just makes sense as I don't know, like an upper mid-range wide receiver. I don't think game script is an issue. The targets have been there. He's got 25 targets through 3 weeks. I feel good about Godwin.
I like Godwin too. I do. I don't know if you're going to see. I don't know if you're going to see Mitchell on Mike Evans and Mike Evans, gives him some work there as a rookie corner. That could be interesting. So I don't want to fully sleep on Mike Evans either, because when he does pop off, you see some huge games from him. He's been super quiet over the last 2 weeks, but there's 2 touchdown upside live with this guy every single time he's on the field.
No doubt about it.
That in mind, I don't have a ton right now. Wide receiver is just such a deep position, man. All right.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, it's just deep. Like there's a lot here that we can get to in that range as well. Denver and the Jets. Look, I'm a fan of Denver. I want to see Bo Nix succeed. You and I both would love nothing more than to see Cortland Sutton have a quarterback that's capable of getting him the football. And we saw glimpses of that last week. I'm fully out on Denver today. I don't think there's any spot that stands out enough to want to get there. The backfield's a mess. Sutton's going to see some really good defensive some corners. I'm out on Denver. I don't have anything today against the Jets in New York or in East Rutherford.
No, definitely not. If we have thousands of people watching, for the few of you that are alive in Survivor, certainly the Jets are going to be a team that I think people look to. They're a good teaser piece today. They'll be a popular teaser piece. Whether they're good, that's debatable, I guess. But yeah, I have nothing for Denver. I have some Jets defense, and I don't know how you go to Denver in this spot.
All right. So Megamind Genius play. You ready? Are you ready?
On the Broncos side?
No, on the Jets. I'm using your phrase, Megamind. What is it?
Well,
Super Megamind Genius?
No, Megamind Genius. Super Megamind Genius would have been a Broncos play. That's too much. That's just stupid.
Yeah,
Who, Garrett Wilson?
No. Not against Surtain, but it has something to do with it. Mike Williams, super Megamind Genius play.
That is.
Mike Williams, is this the Mike Williams game? We've seen Patrick Surtain. I know he struggled against Pickens, but it was all like Surtain would rather take pass interference penalties instead of giving them giving them the yards. But aside from that, I mean, limited DK Metcalf to nothing. Who did they face last week? Who did they face last week?
Who?
The Broncos. Limited Mike Evans. Limited Mike Evans to nothing.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to see a lot of Garrett Wilson today. I do. Mike Williams was targeted on a deep ball in the end zone last week, 40 yards downfield. He didn't catch it, but it would have been wiped out on a penalty anyway. He also had another end zone target from Aaron Rodgers. That is interesting to me. Now his snap count has been weird. It gone down and then up and then down again. But that was also a short week, right? That was also a short. And when I say Megamind Genius, I'm talking about like a small sprinkle of Mike Williams in case you get that big game, because he's not super cheap. But they had played 4 days prior. Maybe they just limited his snap count because it was a short week and he's coming back from injury. But now, Ben, it's extended rest. It's been 11 days since they've played. if Garrett Wilson's tamped down, locked down by Patrick Surtain, maybe it's the Mike Williams game. I bet him to score a touchdown, by the way.
That's the type of thing. Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely some utility there. You're leveraging a low probability of success situation, but I mean, the guy's got all the talent in the world. But the nice things that you talked about were short week, and then you could say like, well, they're big favorites, geared down. It can't get any worse than New England when they were in full control. Like that's the floor in terms of, them with his snap count not needing him. So if this game stays more competitive, maybe we see that. The thing that kind of hurts him, in my opinion, is just the price. This would be a whole lot more if he was like $500 cheaper. He's right in the 5K range, and there are guys that I don't have to worry about. Deontay Johnson style, a couple $100 more expensive.
Look, I totally agree. To me, this is more of a I'm betting him to score. I have anytime touchdown on him at plus 2 something. I don't mind that. But I'm with you. It's tough to get there in DFS. Like in the largest fields of tournaments, if you're talking the mini max or something with 339K, I don't think getting a little bit of Mike Williams is insane there. But you have to go, it has to be those massive contests. And this is just a play on if Surtain really is on Wilson because he's locked down everyone's top guy. And you've seen the number 2 have some pretty decent games. You could argue Allen Lazard, sure, but Mike Williams has the breaking upside if he has a couple of deep passes,
Oh yeah, I mean the home run there. The floor is just what we've seen, which is like 3 targets.
Correct. Fully agree. More of a betting angle than DFS. What about the backfield here? You said earlier you're going to have a good amount of Breece Hall.
Yeah, I mean it's just when I pay up, I am getting to more Breece Hall than Saquon. This guy seems 20 plus touches in every game. You and me had I don't think it was a strong disagreement because I think we both agree that Braylon Allen can, should, and will be a part of this offense and needs to be. But it seems like there's so much volume to go around. It doesn't really matter because I don't think Breece Hall is going to be short of touches in these games. So I just look at him. He does everything. He can catch the ball. They lean on him. Rodgers, he did look, I will say, a little more mobile, particularly last week. But in general, he doesn't want to be running. I like Breece Hall. Am I jamming him? No. He's, 20% on DraftKings. You're looking at him on FanDuel. That's not as prevalent. Let's see where he comes in. Oh, no. He's even more prevalent. I had to scroll up because he's only 8,000 over there. 33%. He just checks out as a really good play. And yeah, Breece Hall is going to be, firmly in the pool. Simple as that.
Yeah, he should be. Not too worried about Braylon Allen?
No, just because, again, Braylon Allen, it's one of those things. It's like when we talk about target share. It's like, oh, man, this guy had a 40% target share. It's like, yeah, but it was 4 targets because they only threw 10 times. Like, if the Jets want to run the ball or give 40 opportunities to their running backs, give Braylon Allen 12. I'll take 28. And I'll be just fine. You know what I mean? So I think there's just enough to go around.
Yeah. Big Fact said the Eagles have no one. How do people think that he's going to get more action than Saquon? It's literally going to be Saquon and Hurts all day. You could be right.
Of course.
You could be right that Saquon just touches the ball 30 times today.
But even with that, that's a possibility. Are his 30 touches that much? The efficiency, I think, will be dramatically less than, say, Breece Hall's 24 touches in my mind.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to balance.
Right. So you're talking the efficiency there for somebody like Breece Hall is just better than.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get targets. There's no doubt about it. He's explosive. You tell me you want to play Saquon Barkley. I mean, it's Saquon. Of course you could play him. I don't think it's the ideal matchup for him, though.
Yeah. I guess the only question there is if you're getting, a lot more ownership to Hall, does it still not bother you?
Not really, just because the way this slate fell, I didn't see, there's been a couple weeks in a row where, and we'll see as info comes in, but like when Jordan Mason was 45% owned, I thought it was kind of a different story. These guys are going to be popular, but it's all relative. Like Breece Hall is not going to be that type of ownership. So no, it doesn't worry me.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, when you're a touchdown plus favorite at home, Breece Hall starts to look really, really good for sure. I hear you. I like Breece Hall today, obviously. but just the running back position in general you could close your eyes and pick and probably land on a decent lineup with running backs like Najee, Bijan. Kyron's getting a lot of ownership too, which is, it's so funny because he's so used, so much volume that he wasn't even efficient last game. What did it take him 24 carries to get to like 80 some yards?
You don't need to be efficient if you get the ball over and over.
Yeah. Brees, Chuba, Mason, Rob, Bijan, Connor against Washington, Kamara. Yeah. They're missing Eric McCoy though. We'll get to that game though. You know, elite center just hit the IR. So we'll see how much of a difference that makes. But yeah, we didn't even mention guys like Aaron Jones or Zach Moss or Barkley down there. So you have probably like 13, 14 running backs that are all super viable today. Anyone else for the Jets? You want to talk Cincy, Carolina?
No, I want to talk Cincy, Carolina. I'll just say the last thing, just to put a bow on that. That speaks to why I'm not as worried about ownership. All those guys that you listed, they can't all be popular. Even if you're getting 3 running back lineups, they can't all simply, there's an opportunity cost when so many guys grade out well, and the Najees of the world will help guys like Breece Hall today.
Shine said something, and then we'll move on from this because we got to speed it up a little bit, but that is very, very interesting to me and what I think could be a pretty definitive aspect of like everything we see with these top guys today. Breece gets more receptions than Saquon as well. So what if what the Eagles do differently today with no pass catchers is they just start getting Saquon, Kellen Moore just starts getting Saquon way more involved in the passing game. I think they're very live to do that. And that's what scares me if I'm not playing a lot of Barkley.
That would be scary. That would be, I think maybe the best chance of like real home run success for Saquon would be like a Kamara-like role.
I agree. And they haven't had a guy like this, right? Sanders dropped half of the passes thrown his way. Swift is fine. But Saquon, unless you need him to catch one on 4th and 3 to ice the game, pretty good pass catcher. A lot of experience there. All right, Cincy and Carolina. Carolina, 5-point favorites. I'm seeing 5.5 in some spots now. Or I'm sorry, Cincy, 5.5 points in some spots. So this has moved. Looks like people are expecting a bit of a bounce back from the Bengals. What a wild game on Monday, though. Like, one thing that we expected was that Washington's defense would be terrible, and they were. Cincy didn't punt a single time, but their defense was objectively worse than Washington's, and that was like, dude, I knew that the run defense was going to be bad. I did not think that Cincinnati's their secondary against a rookie quarterback making his primetime debut would get carved as much as they did.
Yeah, you don't say. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to break down how a game's going to go, having it go the way you thought, and then being punished for it. Like, I was so confident that Cincinnati could really, and listen, wasn't breaking any news. Washington's defense is a mess, and just they could not get a stop. They had no punts, no turnovers. They still lost the game. At some point, they're going to need to win. I'm pretty confident at some point Cincinnati will, in fact, have to win a game to move up in the standings. And this is another good opportunity. You've got Higgins, you've got Chase, you've got Moss. These are the weapons. These are the guys that are going to grade out. I'm not getting to Burrow, so I'm not getting to the stacks. But certainly, I think that Chase in particular, you almost hit a 3-touchdown Chase insane ticket. He's going to be busy once again today.
We were so close. We got the 2.
I had first touchdown. Chase was very good to us in tails.
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah, you had it, 7-1, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I got the laddered 2+ at 9-1. And then 3 was 55-1. By the time that game started, it was like 38-1. So and closing line value for those type of props is, you got to be careful with that, right? Because I don't think it takes a ton to get it to move. But
well, no, the percentage difference, it's like,
exactly.
it's 2.3% instead of 1.8%. But
right, but the difference is $100 bet is 5,500 or 38. That's the difference.
That's the difference for sure.
Right. So like the probability in the grand scheme doesn't change. Like, but if you have $100 bet on something like that, that's a huge difference.
Massive. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I have no problems with Chase today, but Higgins is the one that's kind of interesting because he's in that same range as all of those other 5K receivers. He comes out in week 3 after not playing at all in weeks 1 and 2, plays 90% of snaps. I know he wasn't targeted a ton, but he was on the field for basically the whole game, right? He played 90% of snaps. Played what? 5 fewer snaps than Jamar Chase.
He was certainly out there. He's certainly busy. And we know that, we've seen T Higgins over the years have blow up games, multiple touchdown games. You hope the targets creep up a little bit. I do like him at 59. He's 7,200 on FanDuel. That's a little much, in my opinion. So it is somewhat site dependent. But yeah, if you want it to be different within Cincy, I think Higgins is the guy.
So then what's your favorite way to play Cincy today?
It's just one-offs. Either take Chase, take Moss if you want to be different and not play. Like, seen a lot of people say, I'm not playing Najee. Okay, well, the 2 running backs in this game in particular are going to be those pivots. It's going to be, Hubbard, and it's going to be Moss.
Yeah. I'm not playing, obviously, Chase Brown today, but I think his time will come. I know a lot of people are saying he's just not good. He's just quick and this and that, and he can't block, and his vision's bad, but he's efficient, man. Like he's averaging 7.5 yards per attempt this season on 14 carries. Like you saw it last week, 7 for 62, 4 for 31. I think they're going to want to get him the ball, but Moss is still the guy there, and I think he's still the primary third down guy too, because he's just a better pass blocker. So yeah, Moss would be my guy as well. I liked Chase a lot more last week than I like him this week. Not because Chase isn't in a good spot this week. He is. And you might just see that the Panthers had a bit of a dead cat bounce last week against the Raiders. I think that's possible, right?
Oh, so do I. I mean, they weren't as bad as it seemed in the first 2 weeks, but I don't think they're as good as they seemed either last week.
Yeah. They're not. But I still think Chuba's price point here is good. Like, this guy touched the ball a ton last week. And, even the week before where they were playing from behind, say he's touching the ball in 60+% of the plays that he's on the field. Miles Sanders is going to get some work, but he's not good. And they clearly don't love using him. If the way I see it is pretty simple. If this game is competitive, even if it's not, Chuba will still be involved in the passing game. But if this game is close, and I think it's possible that this is a shootout if Cincinnati's defense doesn't improve significantly, then Chuba Hubbard at 5,700 is just kind of an unavoidable value on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, again, the only thing in my opinion that's stopping him from being like comically owned is that there are 2 or 3 or 4 other running backs in the same price range that also have a lot going for them. Because you mentioned the volume, you mentioned the game, they're at home. He grades out great. Him and Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson also, it looks like, we'll get word, and we got you covered all the way up to lock. I'm operating under the assumption that he's playing.
He's playing.
Yeah,
he's playing.
I feel fine with him, and that's about it. I'm not really getting to Dalton. I think you could do it. But there's just so many good quarterbacks. It might be in the pool a little bit, but it's certainly not a primary lineup build for me.
What do you do with guys like Xavier Leggett or Mingo? Because Thielen's out.
Still no.
Yeah, you just rather take the 2 top dogs here and move on.
I would. This is where, like, again, not that I'm riding with Paris Campbell, but it's like if I'm gonna do it, I'd rather do it with Paris Campbell.
That's fair. If I'm doing it, I'd rather just go Mingo over Leggett. I don't even think that's close because one of them's 4,800 and the other's 3,300. I don't even think that's a question.
I agree with that too.
Yeah. I'll probably have a little bit of Mingo just in case this game does get, kind of evolve into a shootout. He played 66% of snaps last week. Thielen's out. But the thing with Deontay Johnson, assuming he's active, 4 end zone targets last week is crazy. That's crazy. 14 targets, 38% target share, 4 end zone targets of Dalton's 5. The other one was that 31-yard touchdown to Thielen that he got hurt on. Deontay Johnson is so good at getting open as well. Like, he doesn't get credit for that, particularly in man. And he's just, it's hard to think that Dalton doesn't just lean on him again. So I love him this week.
Yep. You betting this game?
I'm betting. I have some props in this game, a good amount of props. I didn't bet a side though. Did you bet a side?
No, there's a thought that I might bet Cincinnati. I'm just not sure I'm going to actually do it.
I like the over.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah. It's just also so tough. It's also so tough with these teams because can Cincinnati be as bad as they've been? And
No, but I said that 3 weeks in a row.
I know, right? Yeah. The defense, if this defense is, think of it this way. If this defense is 50% as bad as they were last week, they're still pretty bad.
They're like the second worst defense in the league.
Right.
Like they're that's not an improvement. That's good enough.
Exactly. Official Chris Presto channel with a super chat. What's up, man? Hey, Lafayette and Ben. How about with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown out? Or how about Grant Calcaterra scoring a touchdown today? I mean, it's live, but does he have a touchdown in his career?
I mean, you're drawing to like that would be something like on a
showdown play.
Exactly. Like
it's a showdown play.
If you go to, by the way, if you go to OddsShopper and you want to check stuff like that out, just go to the odds screen and search the player props. Make sure if you're going to bet something like that, the odds, I can guarantee you, will vary wildly from book to book.
On the very long shot ones?
Yeah.
I already pulled it up. You're absolutely right. Whenever you see that, same with long shot home runs, long shot doubles, all that stuff. Caesar's at 14-1 right now. Pinnacle at 13-32. But again, like it's such, with something like that. Yeah. If you're doing it, Caesar's is because DraftKings is plus 950. If you like Calcaterra, you're not playing him in DFS on a main site. You're betting him, like you said, at 14-1 to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
That's the only move. But again, it's 14-1. So you know where your break even is.
Jacksonville and Houston. All right. Talk to me, man. This is a spot you like for the Jags? You going back to the well? Because Doug Peterson might be out of a job and Lawrence might be on the bench if they look anything like they did last week.
Might be over.
Might be over.
It might be over. We don't have time to dig into like my, number one pick balancing act. Like, would you rather? But Trevor Lawrence, it's not looking early returns.
Hold on, do it real quick.
Well, I always talk about like, would you throw back? I think like Alex Smith is such an interesting one. He was really good. Was he ever dominant? No. Was he a bust? Definitely not. If you had the number one pick and you could guarantee Alex Smith, would you? I'd say most GMs would say no. They would rather pick and live with it. Trevor Lawrence right now is an easy throwback. At one point, he would have been, I think you would have taken it at certain points through his start, but this is terrible. Now, having said that, he's got weapons all over the place. Like Kirk, I still think you don't need a run back in Texan stacks, but he would be where I'd go. If you wanted to punt tight end, you could go to Strange. I think more people will go to Higgins, and I'm one of those people. ETN, he's not going to be popular, which is always a nice thing, but it's hard to justify paying flat 7. I don't have a lot to say here. I still believe that the Jaguars can get involved in the South, but you have to probably win today, and I'm not sure they can do that. They have so many weapons, though. I don't think this is not like the Broncos, where it's like, I see no reason to play any Broncos. I see reasons to play Jaguars today.
I get it. Divisional spot, too. Also, this game moved from 6 to 7 to 5.5. So move through 6, Ben, to 5.5 after bouncing to 7 earlier in the week.
I mean, the stupid thing about this, it's week 4. The Jaguars have been, I think, maybe the worst team in the league.
Been bad.
If they win today, they're like almost straight fine already. Like you have a game in hand against Houston, and you're 1-3 in a division that no team is good in.
Man, if they won today, that'd be nuts because it's not like Houston's coming off 3 straight wins and this is a letdown spot.
That's what I mean. They got demolished last week.
They got crushed. Brian Flores put them in a blender. So I mean, that's just one of those reasons where maybe this is just the preeminent game stack of the week. Maybe this is the best spot to game stack.
So I do like the game stack here, particularly because both quarterbacks, more importantly with Stroud, they're not getting there with weird, the good quarterbacks this week, Daniels, Murray, even Fields to a lesser extent. they could have a lot of points and it could all be for them. If the Texans put up 35 or 40 points, Stroud's going to be throwing it all over the place. So yeah, Nico and Diggs and Stroud with a Kirk run back, or those three with nobody are builds that I'm interested in.
You know what else is concerning? The one thing that concerns me here is, all right, so what if Doug Peterson has just totally lost this team? I think that's a real possibility. You see that happen, right? If that's not the case and they've just gotten off to a terrible start, but man, coming off of that loss to the Browns in Jacksonville and then Monday Night Football in Buffalo, the most lifeless display of football you'll ever see. God, I have some real reservations about this team right now.
Yeah, they look awful. That's why I don't think you need a run back, because there's definitely scenarios that the Texans win like 38-3.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, this is not a game where it's like, oh, well, if Collins and Diggs go crazy, that means that Kirk automatically does. Like, sure, he could, or the Jaguars could just be that bad again.
Yeah. All right. Well, favorite plays from Jacksonville then?
Oh, it's Kirk, but it's more by default than anything else.
Are you stacking them though? Like Kirk, Thomas, Lawrence?
So I have
or Strange?
I have a couple of shares of Lawrence in like the Millie, because like a Jaguars onslaught, but that's about it. I have one-offs of Kirk, and that's about it.
Okay.
I have more like I'm much more interested in Stroud plus a couple than I am doing anything with the Jaguars side.
I'm also not telling you anything you don't already know, but Nico is just a fantastic play today. I mean,
That guy's a monster.
He's one of your favorites. It's hard to get away from him. It really is. Like, you know, you're paying for him for sure. But with Tank Dell out, you know, Nico's 77 on FanDuel, 7,200 on DraftKings. No Tank Dell. Stephon Diggs is obviously a factor, but Joe Mixon, you're not going to have Joe Mixon today. No Dameon Pierce. And then the reason I mention that is because Cam Akers just isn't very good. And they had a very tough time running the football last week, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Yes, Cam Akers is viable in a spot where they're, 5.5, 6-point favorites at home, but he scares me. I don't love it. I think there's some great options in that 5K range where you don't need to jam him. Nico in this game to me is just the best play, hands down.
Nico and Diggs. Yep.
I think Schultz is interesting though too, because it's a bad position, and without Tank Dell, now you actually might just have a 3-man pass catching group.
Now that, you know what that is.
What's that? The Megamind Genius
That's
play?
a Megamind Genius play.
I don't think it's that crazy.
Everybody assumes, okay, no Tank Dell, it'll consolidate around the two big weapons there. Sure, very possible. It could just make Schultz a bigger part of this offense. And this is a guy, I think the only thing that hinders him is opportunities. He's a good player. That's a Megamind. And I'm putting him in the anytime, by the way, you guys know we're going to talk about tails, how you can get more involved. I'm putting him in my round robin today.
Oh, I love it.
Round robin, anytime touchdown scorer, Dalton Schultz going in there.
Would you like to know the odds first or no?
It doesn't matter. I don't even care if he's minus. I'm putting him in there. Now, I mean, he's got to be a nice prize.
I'll tell you right now. By the way, 96% of snaps last week for Dalton Schultz.
Good. Hopefully he's like 5 to 1.
The live odds screen on Odd Shopper is free, by the way. It's free.
Yes.
You should use it. That's what I use for all my props. Also, Greg mentioned it in the show before that, but today's the last day. Promo 50. What do you get, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even there's no decision, because we've had so many people with basketball coming up saying, portfolio EV, what is it? Can I check it out? Can I test it? Can I see this? And we said, you know what? Come on in. Promo code 50. It's free. It's a free trial. So there's actually no strings attached. If you want to see what all of us have strongly believed in and what the devs have built about portfolio EV and learn what that means, if you're saying, what the hell is portfolio EV? Come on over and see for yourself. We're not going to be, I can confidently say, Luff, and you can back me up, we're not going to be running free trials of these tools
No.
often. That's not something we like to do because it's incredibly valuable. We wanted people to get a real shot to test them out, to learn about them, because this is not going away. I really believe this is the future, just like the sim tools with DFS that we've built. And it's a free trial. If you say this is ridiculously dumb, I hate it, well, as you say, we'll refund your misery, right?
Yeah.
Is that the line?
Yeah, we'll gladly refund your misery. It's
Good.
for free. It's $0.
Yeah.
Link in there. By the way, that says get 50% off Odd Shopper Portfolio EV. That's incorrect.
No, that's fake.
It's
100%.
free. It's a free trial.
Yep.
Ben uses I love this phrase from Ben, and I've stolen it and I use it all the time with
great.
buddies and stuff. What's that?
Do you give me credit when you do that in the shadows?
I give you credit all the time for stuff, dude. You'd be shocked.
I would be.
Yeah.
That's
I
true.
show
would-
reverence. Look, I love betting, but I love to gamble too.
Love to gamble.
Right. And that's why,
Yeah.
like someone had mentioned earlier in the show, they're like, man, that Mike Evans is not a plus EV bet. Listen, like 90+% of my bets come from portfolio EV every week. Every week. I have them all segmented. I've had a great season so far just using these market-based plus EV spots, hammering them. I turn notifications on with the app, turn notifications on. I have them set for every 5 minutes, dude. So literally, I'm getting notifications every 5 minutes if something pops up, and I'm just hammering it. But I also like to do 5-leg touchdown round robins, which we hit in week 2, by the way.
Well, I mean,
But
I go to
I like
casinos. I play roulette. I play roulette.
You
I'm a
have to
roulette
go
player.
lotto tickets sometimes. Like that's what keeps it fun. And if it's not a large portion of your bankroll, who cares?
Well, see, this is the thing. It works, and then we can move on. Portfolio EV allows you the flexibility to be able to take those long shots a lot easier because you're like, wow, I have some really solid plus EV bets in the portfolio. Hint, hint. That's why we call it that. And now I can say, okay, I'm up today. I'm having a really good week. I can take a small portion of it and have some fun. Let the dice roll on the table. Doesn't have to be one or the other. That's my favorite thing. I bet sports seriously. I love to gamble. Love to gamble.
Yeah, man. Envious. My lotto tickets, Kelsey 2+ touchdowns at 16-1. I get it. You know, he's either going to have 4 for 20 or he's just going to have that huge game and they go, oh, there he is. I kind of like that. I kind of like that. All right. Where are we at? So okay, Dalton Schultz, Megamind Genius play plus 290 on Caesars, by the way, Ben, is the best you're gonna get there. Not great, but
I'm still, I gotta look more into that. But yeah, I do think that's a pretty good one.
Minnesota and Green Bay. All right, here's an interesting game because you have the evil genius Brian Flores on the defense for Minnesota, but also Matt LaFleur has really found ways to, I mean, this guy's smart. Really is. He's 33-9 since 2019 as the head coach with the Green Bay Packers. This guy knows how to get it done. And you're expecting Jordan Love back for this game as well, which is huge. The only other thing here, though, is that Jair Alexander, I think he's doubtful now.
I believe he is. I thought he got ruled out, but yeah, it looks like he's not going to play.
Is this guy ever healthy for more than a couple weeks at a time, though? Like they still figure out ways to be good on defense without him. He's always hurt.
Yes, this is true. And this is an awesome real life game. And I do kind of like the Packers in the betting market. I'm not getting to a lot of exposure in my lineups, though. Not getting to really either quarterback. These are big time players. There's no doubt in terms of we know how good Justin Jefferson is. Your boy Aaron Jones. I'm not really bullish on the Vikings today.
Our friend Andy Francis, he was saying this is what he goes, I'm going to be, he's like, this is where I'll be the fish, you know, and jump on a narrative. The fact that Aaron Jones wanted to retire with the Packers and they basically just told him, hey, we don't need you. We don't want you. Can I get you to take the bait on the Aaron Jones narrative at all here today?
No, I mean, the stupid thing is Aaron Jones could have an amazing game and people are going to be like,
yeah,
see,
it's just that he's good.
He's also a very good player. That might have something to do with it. These are the type of running backs I'm completely fine. We just need to know what you're doing. And to me, why you're playing Aaron Jones is because you say, I want some leverage. I want a 5% owned running back that has some upside. And I'm not in love with Najee and Bijan and some of those guys. If that's your move, I get it. I am pretty in line with some of the chalkier plays at running back. So for that reason, I don't have a lot of room for Aaron Jones today.
It's tough. I'd love to get a little bit of him, but yeah, it's difficult in that spot, especially because Ty Chandler does get involved in that backfield.
Yeah, he's not an afterthought. It's just, again, he's not as popular because he's not in as good of a spot. So that's what you're balancing. There's no doubt about it.
Yobi Trice, I laughed a lot at Ben saying real life game. What were you? I don't know what you were referring to.
I don't know, but I do say that a lot.
Man, if we get to 4,000 people watching and we don't hit 1,000.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. It's just like all my college football bets yesterday where they were minus 20,000 live, and I actually ended up losing the majority of them. Shout out to Auburn. Anyway.
Well, they have 99% win probability at one point.
All right, them, and then we'll get back to this, I promise. Texas State, I rolled into moneyline parlays. They were 10.5-point favorite. They were up 22-0 in the first quarter, and they lost 40-39. So, like, that's just unacceptable. That shouldn't happen.
Damn. I still think we get there. I still put it at good minus money to get there.
Minus 135, which was correct the whole time.
These people will rally for us, as they always do.
But I still think we're getting to 100,000
If we
subs.
end up hitting like 1,200, you can't be like, oh yeah, minus 130 was right all along. You'd be just flat out wrong.
Well, I would say we'll visit that if it happens, but we won't have to. So we'll say if that happens, I'll weasel out of why it was still right.
Hey, rally for your boys here. Rally for your boys. Get us to 1,200. Get us.
Are you playing anyone in this game?
I'm playing. Hold on. Not nearly as much as I'd think.
Not that good of a game.
But it could be. That's the scary thing. It really could be.
It's a swing game. I'll give you that. I just I'm not done building, but my first couple sim runs, it didn't get a ton. The leverage was pretty neutral on most of these players.
It's a good way to put it. It's a swing game because, you still have Jefferson, still have Aaron Jones. With Green Bay, it's so difficult for me, though, because we haven't really been able to see any target share shape up because Jordan Love only played one game. That's what I see a lot of people talking about Jaden Reed and like, hey, he could be the guy. It's just, I don't know, man. I'm having a tough time with this because, first of all, he's too expensive. I'm not paying $6K for Jaden Reed on DraftKings.
No.
I don't know if it's Wicks. I don't know if it's Dobbs. I don't know if it's Reed. I don't know if it's Kraft. I don't know if it's Musgrave. Like, I just don't know. And with how that Flores defense has been playing lately, I think there's just other spots, low-owned spots that I'd rather take shots this week. I would be more interested in Minnesota than I would in Green Bay because at least I know in Minnesota who's going to be touching the football.
Oh, it's definitely the less, variable spot in general. But with that, the efficiency of the pricing is more accurate, I think, on Minnesota. So that makes it tougher. You know what I mean? They know too. Like, it could turn out with the Packers with Love back, the target share starts to adjust, and one of these guys is perpetually overowned or undervalued. I'm just not sure I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Everyone's saying if Love is back, we know who his favorite target was in week 1. Yeah, I mean, it was 1 week, though. I don't know. If you have that read, go for it. Like Ben said, the variability with Green Bay is significant, whereas it's not nearly as much with Minnesota. But also, the books know that and the sites know that, Ben. What I'm saying, though, is if you look at this game and it does turn into a shootout, then you want those top guys from Minnesota.
No doubt about it. If that happens, I should be punished, and I will be. So I don't have that build.
All right. New Orleans and the Saints and the Falcons. Atlanta 3-point favorites here. It's funny. Both of these teams have banged up offensive lines. Like Atlanta lost 2 key contributors, key starters on that O-line. That's not great. I haven't really heard it talked about much. Maybe people aren't too worried, but pretty big deal. Pretty big deal. And then you lose McCoy as starting center. They're basically the voice of that offense. captain, great center, I believe all pro. I'm not saying that changes everything, but it definitely makes me look at things a little bit differently. But then I go and look in the prop market and it's like, all right, Bijan still has a rushing plus receiving prop of 109.5. That's a crazy high number. 10, I'm not saying it's wrong. Just saying that is a big number. It's down, actually. I had a feeling it would come down. DraftKings has it at 100.5. Sorry,
wow.
102.5. FanDuel at 100.5. BetMGM 105.5. So it's come down, as much as 9 yards in some spots. Not shy. It's not as surprising to me as I thought. Now, this is what I wanted to posit to you. This is where it gets so interesting. Who do you think has the highest rushing plus receiving prop on the week of any running back?
Kamara.
No, I'm going to give you another guess too.
Kyron Williams.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Saquon Barkley.
What made you ask this? See, I didn't even want to say Kamara. I just said it because he was in the game, thinking of
What
why
made
you
me
asked.
ask this?
Yeah, because of
that-
Bijan.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is because if you look at running back ownership, Saquon is just so much lower than most of these guys. Yet he has a higher rushing plus receiving prop, which I'd say is a semi-important prop. He's pulling 7%. Kyron's pulling 21. Breece Hall's pulling 19. Bijan's pulling 28. Mason's pulling 18.5. I understand some of these price points are different, but Barkley's got the highest prop of all of them.
Well, yeah, man, it's an important data point. Now, I will say Bijan is also slightly favored to anytime. If you look at anytime touchdown markets, his touchdown equity is really good in the spot too. So it's easy to see why he's getting a lot of love. Grades out really well. I'm fine with him. I'm a little confused on what to do with New Orleans. Kamara, he had a blow up spot when he was really low owned. He's getting just like a stupid amount of work. He had 26 carries against the Eagles. That's insane. I don't really even understand that. And then I assume Olave is gonna play, but I'm not really getting to him.
I'm not getting to Olave either. Plus, Atlanta's done a phenomenal job of really limiting the passing game. I like Olave over Shaheed because I think the Falcons have allowed 3 passes of 20+ yards so far, which is really, really low. That's a good secondary, Ben. I think their defense is pretty good. Falcons.
Yeah, I have no like big issues with it. I honestly, in this game, it's another game where it's like I'm fine with a couple pieces, whether it's a Drake London. Obviously, Bijan's going to be the most popular. I'm not getting to Shaheed. We know you just saw it. Shaheed's game log is super accurate of what you get. You get some home run touchdowns, and then he had 0
Correct.
in week 3.
Correct. What was he? 0 for 5, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of it.
And to your question, what is it? Skittle? I don't know. Did anyone today assume Barkley wasn't a good play? He's just a little expensive. No, that wasn't my point. The point was that he's not much more expensive than Hall, Williams, or Robinson, but he's getting a fraction of the ownership. That was the point. But look, I understand the concerns around Barkley, Ben. I don't mean to keep revisiting this. It's just
No,
crazy.
it's fascinating.
It is, right? Like that he still has that. All I'm saying is maybe there's something we're not seeing. Maybe he is just going to get 30 touches in a game like this.
I'm banking. See, where we, not you and me, differ. What I'm saying is the volume is not the concern. It's the efficiency of those touches.
I got you. Yeah. How much Kamara are you getting to right now? Because for me, he's the one spot in New Orleans that I'd really, I'm always interested in Alvin Kamara in a spot like this.
I mean, with that type of volume, he's certainly in the discussion. But honestly, I'm not getting to a ton of them. I respect Atlanta's defense. I'm not super sold on the Saints. If you're going to keep telling me that Kamara is flirting with like 30 touches, obviously I have to have some interest there. But I have more Breece and more Bijan.
Real quickly, just to back up, how much are you getting of Cam Akers from Houston? I didn't ask you that question.
Literally 0.
Okay. Just out on him.
I think he's a fine player, but his price point isn't reflective of any value, in my opinion.
It would be if you didn't have so many other guys with that same price point.
Yep.
That's a concern. It's a big concern, really. I'm not getting the much Barkley right now for what it's worth. I'm definitely getting the more Bijan Robinson. Definitely.
Do you mean Kamara?
No, just to go back to our conversation.
Okay, okay.
I'm getting not a ton of Kamara either. Just a lot of Bijan.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of Chuba, a
Yep.
lot of Hall.
Yep.
I just ran a lot of Najee. This is my first Sims run since we updated. So just looking over the Sims run now, and yeah, a lot of that for sure. All right. Where am I? Oh, pass catchers from Atlanta. I don't love the passing game here this week. I'm not getting the Pitts. I'm not really getting the much London. It's just such a deep position, man. I don't really feel like I need to stretch here.
I have some Drake London just because I think he's a pretty good player, but no, I don't see the need there, and I'm not getting Cousins at all. So by product of that, you're talking about one-offs, and there are just better one-offs on this slate.
I have, as far as pass catchers go from Atlanta right now, I have 8% Drake London, and I have one Ray McLeod lineup. That's it. That's it. So yeah, nothing else there. All right. Rams and Chicago Bears. Keenan Allen's expected to play. So that means you get Rome, you have DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, who God knows what you have in that backfield right now.
Yeah, I mean the Bears actually helped me and a lot of people. The Caleb Williams stacks turned out great, but
yeah, I had
real life they were off. Like they played pretty bad in my opinion.
Didn't matter.
No, it's not. That's again one of the big misnomers. You don't have to be good to be a really good stack.
I had a lot of Caleb stacks last week, and even my Deshaun stacks weren't that bad. The skinny stacks with Amari, even though they were terrible. Sometimes it just works out that way, right? And
yeah, I was on Cleveland as well.
Yeah. This week, though, the Rams defense, Sean McVay is willing them to victories right now. This defense has been bad. They're allowing 426 yards per game. They've been bad.
Yeah, I don't get how they won last week, but
it's mind blowing. But they're allowing 30 points per game right now as well. It's a problem. You know, they faced Arizona, they faced Detroit, and sure, that game went to overtime, so I guess that's a little bit inflated, but they faced the super banged up 49ers team. They won, but still gave up a lot of productions. They gave up the legacy game to Juwan Jennings. So I don't mind Caleb this week. I truly don't. I bet the over on Swift rushing yards. I don't know if I want to get to it because it was at 34. It might be a Roschon Johnson game though, as well. Like he might just begin to get worked in a lot more.
You're kind of speaking to my big issues with the two big issues I have with the Bears are one, when everybody's healthy, I think we have it kind of like the Packers you were talking about. I think we have no idea what it's going to look like in terms of prioritization of where they want to go. So that makes getting to them in a stack difficult. And then I'm going to give a little love to the Rams. You played, as you mentioned, at Detroit, at Arizona, and the Niners. Like, you should be giving up a lot of yards. I think the Bears in Chicago is a lot easier test and just a not as high octane fantasy spot. So I'm not nearly as bullish as I was on the Bears stacks as I was last week.
If the Bears come out and the offense is terrible this week, does Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator, is he gone?
I mean, he's like the most easy sacrificial lamb. So yeah, I mean, I think their offense is a mess.
So are you just kind of getting away from Chicago this week because there aren't a lot of spots where it just makes sense?
I don't really see the need to get there, to be honest, because there's so many unknowns, starting with the fact that they just might not be as effective. Then if they are, I've said this for years on this show, so sorry to bore you. It's the parlay within a parlay. Step one, the Bears actually have to play, move the ball and score. Even if that happens, you just mentioned it could be, Roscoe John. How many different potential guys could it be? Like, there are so many guys on this team that could factor in. So you really, really have a difficult choice of how many different players, like Roschon Johnson, Swift, Allen, Udunze, obviously more Komet. That's a lot of weapons, and I don't feel strongly ordering them.
I'd put it like this before we move on to the Rams. I'm more than willing to chase these spots when it's an offense that has been good, but this is already an offense that hasn't been very good, and you're also trying to figure out the puzzle. Like, so it's, as you always say, you have to get multiple things right just to be
That's
live.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that? Like, you don't get extra points for being crazy. You may find some under-owned plays, but to me, there are better games on the slate.
How much do you like Kyron this week?
You mentioned the Kyron's in the bucket of like, he is just going to get fed and fed and fed. So I do have him in the pool. I have him behind Bijan and Breece Hall, but he's in that next tier. He had 24 carries against the Niners, 3.7 yards per attempt. Doesn't really matter, though, when you fall in the end zone twice. He had a pair of targets, another touchdown through the air. Guy is just absolute workhorse right now.
It's so funny because he has not been good.
No.
But he's been good. He hasn't, like, from a fantasy standpoint last week, and I was so wrong on him. I wanted nothing to do with him after what I saw with that offensive line, and I knew they got back what's his name, who was suspended. But still, that offensive line had been horrible, and I wasn't even fully wrong. Like, he's still, well, I was, but you know what I mean. As far as efficiency went, he just had nothing. But it didn't matter because he scored 3 times and they gave him the ball 26 times. So yeah, at this rate, you're playing him sheerly on volume.
Yep.
I'm not getting the pass catchers, by the way. Maybe you are. Maybe there's a spot I'm missing. I don't feel like trying to figure this out.
Definitely not.
All right. And again, guys, you guys ever want to check out the tools we have, link in the description and in chat. Like, we've consolidated everything. You only need to click one link to see all, even if you're like, hey, I'm not ready to do it yet. I'm just not there. That's fine, but check it out for sure. I mean, these are the tools that won multiple people millies last year. Multiple people $1 million in a single day. And a ton of 6-figure contest wins as well. So if you're ever interested, hit us up. You have questions, you want to dive in a week or a month, everything's down there. Also, Bet365, Ben, $200 in bonus bets when you bet 5. If you're in any of the states that it's actually available, do it. They have the best sign-up offer. Links in the description and in chat for that too. Not only the best sign-up offer, but they run the $50 in bonus bets promo for Thursday Night Football. They run the $50 promo today. Actually, bet 50, get 25 in bonus bets. So you're not just getting the 200 in bonus bets. When you sign up, takes a minute, deposit 10 and bet 5. And as soon as it settles, you have 200 in bonus bets in your account. But also, they're actually running really good bonus bet promos all the time for NFL and other sports. That's the kicker.
Yeah, it's not just, go on this book and get your bonus bets. Bet365 is an awesome book just to have. I would advocate for them even if they weren't running any type of bonus offer. It would just be an objectively good book to have in the portfolio.
Take advantage of it, man, especially on days like today. New England and San Francisco. I don't have anything from New England. I just can't get there today.
New England, no. That would be, coming off what they did against the Jets, I don't think that was that far removed from what they actually are.
I think it's a better representation of what they are than what we saw in weeks 1 and 2.
That's a fact. Yep.
What about the 49ers side?
So
Debo's expected to play now.
Yeah, obviously it's not a Mason situation from, the last couple of weeks, but he's still firmly in play. He's got 100-yard bonus equity. He's got massive touchdown equity. He doesn't have passing upside. I think that's pretty clear at this point. It just doesn't seem to be happening. Maybe a couple targets. Other than that, though, I don't have a lot to say on San Francisco. I certainly think if you wanted to say, I'm going to try to buy on Kittle, and whatnot, I guess you could do that. I think it's a little premium, and there's some tight ends I like more. But other than that, this is not a team that I think is in a great stack position, because most likely I kind of see a repeat of the Jets game against New England, where the Niners are going to control, their defense will be effective, and they won't need to have, a lot of offensive production to get where they need to go.
Mason's by far the best play in this game for me.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that that's close.
But the pass catchers, though, like you have You're not going to back to Juwan Jennings at an elevated price point anymore, right? You're not.
No.
Do you go to Debo in his first game back at 7K? Ayuk is 6,400. That price is somewhat reasonable, but Kittle's expected back too. This just becomes a lot more difficult. Whereas earlier in the week, it was possible that we'd be without Debo and Kittle again. Now you've got them all back.
Again, this is where I think it's just risk versus reward. And to me, the upside on these Niners guys, even if they have some effective games, I'm not really there. Outside Mason, who I think could, he could have he falls in the end zone 3 times style.
I have 5% Ayuk and I have 1 Debo lineup right now. That's it.
Yeah, again, it's just not a team that I'm super excited to get to.
I have a lot less Mason than I thought I'd have as well, by the way.
Okay. I wasn't planning on getting to a ton, and I have to again rerun my Sims, but yeah, I'm fine with that.
Ready to talk Washington, Arizona?
This is a good one.
Yeah, it is. Austin Eckler's out for Washington. I tell you, I like Brian Robinson today. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols. I'm not saying they won't be on the field. I'm assuming Rodriguez is active in this game. I didn't look. My guess is that he is with Eckler out. But let's see. Is he? Yeah, he is. He is. But Robinson has to get a lot of work. And even before Eckler went down, Brian Robinson was the guy that was getting equal opportunities in the passing game.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I think it's pretty clear he's a prevalent part of this offense, and now he's just going to have to pick up extra work. Like, he would have been in the discussion for me, even with Eckler there. So Washington, we just saw them play an insane game. Now, it happened to be an island game, which is unfortunate because I do think that factors in and it's on people's minds. But Daniels, Robinson, McLaurin, what's there to say? They're all firmly in play, and they grade out like they are in play. Positive leverage.
Yeah, total dropped on this game. I don't really care.
No.
You have to be. This is good. This feels like the chalk game that ends up disappointing. Always, there's always one of those, right? Detroit, Tampa, Detroit, Arizona. Not necessarily massive chalk, but a lot of those games that had the highest totals on the slate and ended up not being great. But I still like Robinson. I still like the Jaden Daniels and McLaurin skinny stack there. I don't know where you're at. I don't have a ton of interest in Jaden +2.
No, just because, again, he's just, when it seems like he's tapping into his ceiling, he's probably stealing some of it for himself on the ground. And that's a good thing.
Not just that, though. It's so spread around. Like De'Ami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Zacchaeus, Olamide Zacchaeus isn't really playing, but Noah Brown gets some. I know Crowder's out. You get what I'm saying, though. There's no real consensus number 2 there. Zach Ertz would be the guy. If I was doing it, it would be Zach Ertz. I'd have to go Ertz as the 2 with McLaurin, but I don't mind the skinny stack. Ertz would be my second option there in the passing game.
Yeah.
Tight end sucks too.
I'm not super worried about weather or anything like that. The total has taken on a little bit, but no, I think these are guys. Brian Robinson's one of, if not my most owned player today.
Yeah. Okay. What about on the other side?
The other side to me is a little trickier just because you've got some awkward pieces. Obviously, Kyler firmly in play, grades out. You can attach him to Harrison. It seems like he's starting to justify what I think is a pretty lofty tag. Now it gets weird, though. You've got some secondary wide receivers that I think are average at best. You've got a tight end that I didn't even know existed who's in play in Elijah Higgins at 31. I'm not getting to your boy in the backfield in Connor. So to me, it's almost mirroring what I said about Daniels. Like, you could go skinny. I think you could punt with the tight end as well, but you have 2 rushing quarterbacks against bad defenses.
You know my thoughts on this Commanders defense, and I'm not going to let off the gas now. I just can't.
Yeah, well, they're just terrible, so.
I mean, the fact that, think about this for a second, that I've played 2+ touchdown props in 2 of the 3 weeks that the teams have faced them, and I've hit 2 of them. It just goes to show less about me and more about the Commanders defense. Week 1, I had 2+ touchdowns at 10-1 on Evans. Week 3 was on Jamar Chase. Week 2, we just bet neighbors to score and go over his total. He scored, went over. So how am I not going back to Marvin Harrison this week from a betting angle and a DFS angle? 38% target share over the last 2 weeks. Forget about week 1. That was an anomaly. Trey McBride is out in this game.
Yep.
Like, sure, they can try to stop Marvin Harrison, but I can't imagine that Kyler doesn't try to get there. Now, I'll also say this, though. I think you have to be considering some of these non-Marvin Harrison options like Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch today. You have to be.
You definitely have to be considering them, but I don't think there's a lot to separate them. They are just kind of attachments and dart throws. That doesn't mean they don't have utility, but you see something different than me if you say it's clearly Wilson. You know, that's the guy. I don't see it like that. I think they're all in the pool because on any of them have a ceiling that puts them in play.
I do prefer Wilson over Dortch, if that's what you're asking. But it's not it's not a clear cut, like, hey, the 90% of snaps last week, he's running routes on pretty much every drop back. Like, you have a guy in Wilson that could have that big game for sure. What about Higgins for you? Is this your favorite punt tight end?
Favorite punt tight end? Yes, but I didn't need to punt tight end a ton. But yeah, the guy is in a role you mentioned in an offense against Washington's defense has been so bad. I can't stress enough how bad they grade out.
Eric Ronas, how is Connor not being talked about here? You did mention him. You talked about him.
I did, but to his point, I was saying I'm not really getting there. It's a product of the running back slate to me. Maybe that's a way to leverage off what's going to be a very popular Connor stack. But
I think it is. I currently don't have a ton. Here's the truth. I don't have a ton of James Conner right now, but I completely understand if that was the spot. I have 10%. Okay. But I completely understand if the spot you wanted to get different was James Conner. It's totally understandable to me because Washington's run defense isn't very good either. It's just their pass defense is dismal.
Yeah. I get it, but again, I'm ultimately not getting there.
Kansas City Chiefs and the Chargers, 2 games to go here. Then we'll toss this one over to Eric and Matt, take you all the way up to 1. We're making good time today. We're doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually, because some of these games are just honestly objectively bad.
I knew that would happen when we spent a lot on Barkley and that first game in Pittsburgh too. I knew this would happen. We'd have time.
I also knew.
We have, what's that?
Nothing. Go ahead.
What were you going to say?
I was saying, clock's ticking.
On what? 1,000 likes?
We might not break it. I told you.
We got 4,200 plus people, which is crazy.
Nobody listens to me.
And we need 81. You're telling me we're not going to smash that by the time?
I didn't say it was impossible. I just said it was no shoe-in.
Okay. All right. 4,200 people. If there aren't a few kind souls on a Sunday morning willing to atone, well, by God, we are lost as a society.
Well, then we're definitely not going to make it. But
what are you doing with the Chiefs? 7-point favorites. Justin Herbert on the other side is expected. I don't know, man. This is like a Rashee Rice spot or nothing for me.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. So there's a couple teams in the league right now, and the Chargers would be one of them. They have such an aggressive style of what they want to do. It almost forces the other team to play at that tempo in that style, and it's not a good one for production. And I worry about the Chiefs not in being able to handle it, in just you're still paying premium tags on these guys. And so that's difficult. Rice is continuing to get, he had 14 targets against Atlanta. You see that type of volume, it's easy to justify, but I don't like this game. I think it has one of the famous last words, one of the lowest equities to really get out of hand and go like way over their total.
I could see it. Chargers always play them tight. The Chiefs always have a tough time covering these big spreads, though. Always. I grabbed the Chargers at 8.5 earlier in the week.
Yeah, I don't think this is. I mean, the Chiefs are getting the job done, but they certainly haven't been winning going away.
No, they're one of those weird teams that finds ways to win. Spagnuolo's a great DC, all of that stuff. The only question, and I have 7% Kelsey right now. I'm at least happy I have a little bit of Kelsey exposure if Travis Kelsey decides he wants to start playing football again. Because if he does, this could be a huge game. If not, it doesn't kill me at all. I have 7%.
Yep. I think that's reasonable for a guy like that.
Are you on board with anything? By the way, 1100 plus. Told you it was. Okay. We'll hit 13, and I'll tell you minus 50,000. It was. That's how it works, man. You should know by now. Are you going to Dobbins or I mean you can't go to I think Edwards was used less last game because it was against that Steelers D and they wanted someone that wasn't just running it up the middle for 3 yards. They wanted to see if Dobbins could just be explosive and break one off, which is why he got way more opportunities in that game. But I can't. Justin Herbert isn't 100% at all. He does show out against Kansas City, and you got to give him credit for that. He always competes. Remember on that bum ankle where he threw that touchdown to get us the backdoor cover a couple of years ago? Yeah, all that stuff is great, but this is a spot. I wouldn't be surprised if I had no exposure to the Chargers.
Agree. I'm not a doctor. I pretended to be for a while, but I don't really know what if it was me, I would sit him and let him like it seems like every game they just trot him out there and he's gutting through it. But like, is that really the formula? Having said that, it's irrelevant for us. I don't think this is a good team to get to. My boy Quentin Johnson continues to find the end zone, but I continue to say that it's an interesting spot, and then I don't play him, and I feel that way again.
I have 3% Dobbins, and that is it. That's it.
I don't have anything.
Cleveland and the Raiders. And by the way, one other thing, guys, last thing, because we still have an hour and a half. Do not forget the stochastic avatar. Just by repping that, you can completely forego having to pay for any subscription if you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. And Ben, what I mean by that is it could be the mini max. It could be a 5-cent entry too. It doesn't matter. You could win $50 and still get a $200 value Sims Max NFL package for the entirety of the month. That's just the bronze tier. You win twice, you get another month, $200 value, plus another week. Imagine it's basketball season. Now you got one of each. Finish in the gold tier. That means 3 wins within a calendar year, $550 value, Sims Max, all access, every tool on the site for the entire month. There's no better program out there for people that rep the avatar than we have right now. And if you get the 20K plus win, you enter the Ring of Honor. You get the custom display, custom stochastic ring with your name engraved on it and in the display case spinning. Look at those beauties. Just go to stochastic.com/HOF.
That is pretty cool.
It's awesome. Rep the avatar, download it, use it wherever it is you play. And if you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, any contest does not matter. No limitations. Just can't chop with 3 or with more than 3. Tweet us your wins at stochastic HOF. That's all you got to do. You know, that picture you've got on there of your cat or something, it's cool, but it's not, that cat ain't making you extra money. You know what I mean? Make the smart decision here. Rep the team. All right. Last game. Cleveland. Raiders. 36.5 point total. Just everybody's hurt. I mean, this is gross.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's so bad. Even Cleveland, like, okay, so Devontae and Max Crosby, you got a bunch of guys, Michael Mayer out for the Raiders. But Njoku, Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, and Wyatt Teller. They're missing 3 starting linemen on a line that, when healthy, is elite. That's a huge problem. But then the Raiders have no pass rush anymore. Game's gross. I don't know what to do with it. I really don't.
Yeah, it's definitely gross, and it's just messy. That really is what it comes down to. I have more interest on the Raiders side of the ball, so I'll get Cleveland out of the way. I was on their stacks last week. We did see, I will say this, Amari Cooper is still really good. For people that think he's not.
The whole he's washed thing was the silly. I'm sorry. Go ahead. But he had 87 yards with a horrible quarterback and no blocking. Should have had 150.
Yeah, he's still quite good, but there's just a mess around him in Cleveland, and that's a situation I don't really want to deal with for Judy. Their price points just don't interest me, to be simple. Other side, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers. I mean, these are the type of names that I think can, should, and will be in people's lineups for salary relief. And if you want to pay up at tight end and you don't want to use Goddard, because similar to what we talked about with the Eagles and some of these teams, the production has to go somewhere. And I do think they will have some success throwing the ball.
Yeah, I'm so nervous about all of this. I don't like it at all. My highest owned is Trey Tucker at 8%. I have 6% Brock Bowers, and then I have
Okay.
1% Amari and Jerome Ford. I'd have a ton of Jerome Ford if I wasn't worried about Dante Foreman.
Do you not have any Jacoby Myers?
I have very, very little Jacoby Myers.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not a good game. The problem is that where one side is really deficient with injuries, the other side can't capitalize on it. You know what I mean? That's the problem. And that hurts. But anyway, hey, you guys are the absolute best. All 4,200 of you in here. You got Eric and Matt coming up right after this. Fun show, man. Appreciate people hanging out as always.
Yeah, appreciate everyone. If you have any questions, our handles are there. On Twitter, of course, we'll be hanging out in our respective Discords over on OddsShop or over on Tails, but let's make some money today. Appreciate everybody.
Let's do it, baby. We'll see you back here soon. Week 5, deeper dive. But first up, Eric and Matt on Live Before Lock, straight up to 1 Eastern. Peace. Later, boys.
Good luck.
Jordan Klein. Kids these days. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Week 4 NFL Live Before Lock here at Stokastic. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. And I'm alongside the college football / NFL expert that we've got on the panel here. It is Matt _Gajeski over on X. Matt, how you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great. Parsing inactives right now.
Yeah.
Trying to find if there's anything unexpected so far. Haven't seen much, but personally, I'm doing pretty good. A little tired. How are you doing, man?
A little tired too, but you know what? Back in the States, back kicking it, and excited to be breaking down the footy on this side of the pond because it's a lot more exciting and more fun. So we're going to be breaking it down in depth here for sure. We've got the massive slate, and then tonight we'll be having the showdown, the Sunday night Live Before Lock, EMAC and Matt Bellman. Make sure that you're checking that out here as well. But we are ever so closely inching towards 100K subs here at Stokastic. That's going to be a fun milestone. Would be awesome if you could just hit that subscribe button as we start off and smash that like button. Maybe get over 1.5K likes. That would look really, really cool in the corner of this video. But parsing through inactives, doing the exact same thing as you. We got Jordan Love back in our lives. We've got Rashad White, who's going to be active, food poisoning, and then Bucky Irving hamstring issue that popped up on the tail end. I have no idea what to make of that. I want something to exist for Tampa, but it doesn't look like I'm going to have any idea what to do with that backfield. I'll get your insight there. And Keenan Allen back for the Chicago Bears. I think that really, 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 really matters for an offense that obviously has been struggling aside from Adunze and then Cole Kmet just showing up out of nowhere. A little weird that everybody wants to play Kmet now, but you know, such is life. We have Jair Alexander. He's going to be out there. Joe Mixon, he's going to be out for Houston as well. The Alexander portion, it's not like you were playing him in DFS, but Justin Jefferson probably looks a little bit better on paper. Let's break it all down, though. Anything else that you see as far as inactives before we start at the quarterback position?
Nope, you hit on a ton of them.
I mean, that's my job.
You're very good at it. This is me complimenting you. I was trying to read through all of them individually. You had them all listed concisely, efficiently, even defensive players, man. You're on top of it.
I'm locked in, baby. I'm ready to win some money. Week 3 was the week that I feel like I should have won. Actually, no, week 1, I feel like I should have won all the money with Alec Pierce, but whatever. Let's go to the quarterback position here, because it is phenomenal in tournaments to be seeing a guy as talented, as ridiculous as Jalen Hurts with no Devonta Smith out there. To have an opportunity to get to him at low ownership, sub 5% ownership for Jalen Hurts, who I believe at the beginning of this season in best ball was your number 1 rated quarterback. We know what he can do with his legs, 40.5 rushing prop. We know what he does at the goal line when Saquon Barkley doesn't get the handoffs. Well, tush push. Maybe it's not Kellen Moore's bag of tea, or cup of tea. That's the expression. But I love Jalen Hurts for tournaments today. I love CJ Stroud for tournaments today. I think both of them up here in the 7K range make a lot of sense. And then I'm a little bit worried that Kansas City just blows the doors off of the Chargers, considering all of their injuries. I'm on that 7.5. I'm actually okay with as well. That's a very important half point, but still, I think the 7K range is awfully appealing to get away from 16% ownership of Jaden Daniels and Kyler Murray right beneath them, but up in the 7K range. How do you plan to utilize these guys in tournaments?
Sparsely. I don't have a lot of interest in the very chalky quarterbacks you mentioned either, but I would rather pivot down there. Pricing is a little tight. There's some injuries, but there's no real 4K values at running back or even receiver. Once you get below 4K, it is pretty gross. So every dollar matters. Breaking these guys down individually, Hurts is throwing to a bunch of practice squad players. You also have Saquon, which has limited his rushing upside. I have him X'd out right now. This is a real debate for me. I'm not sure whether I want to leave that or not, but I just don't see any real reason to play 2% of Hurts in my lineups. Mahomes, I have X'd out as well. It's an extremely low total game for the Chiefs. They're playing the Chargers. Their defense is probably the strength of their team, although they are pretty banged up on that side of the ball. With that said, Mahomes has just been straight up bad over a pretty decent sample now. And I think part of it is the way defenses are playing him with the too high looks and stuff. But you're relying on a rookie pass catcher in Xavier Worthy. All of his production's been manufactured. Teams have figured that out. Kelsey has basically been a corpse, so it's Rashee Rice or nothing for that offense. Stroud is the only one I really have interest in right now. I don't know if he's going to be over-owned. We have him at 7%. He's basically kind of like the cream of the crop. Listening to people talking about pivots, everyone's talking about, the mega-owned Arizona-Washington game. You're going to see Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels pushing 30% combined. Why don't we just play Stroud? So I'm a little worried about the leveling, which has been a major problem in DFS this year. Just ownership coming in incorrectly, and I think it's just the field leveling themselves. Stroud's the only one I plan on playing right now.
Well, I think the Sims tool is really just kind of taken over. It started here at Stochastic with everybody, with the dev team specifically, just putting out a product that helped you realize your equity at a far higher rate. You're not going to win every single slate. DFS, there are slates that chalk gets hurt, chalk fails. Things happen from that perspective. But now people are building more efficient lineups, and we're seeing a lot of those ebbs and flows. We're seeing some interesting running back exposure, and sometimes it can just be one place's projections or one place's variance. I think we do a really good job of smoothing out everything on our end and making it as convenient as possible. It's the best product in the DFS industry right now. And again, Stochastic, you guys can check out all of the fixings here. We're going to be breaking down the single lineup generator. We're going to be looking at some of the Sims results in my lineups, in Matt's lineups. I'm playing a lot on FanDuel today as well. So I'm sure I'll probably be breaking that down more as we go along, because, I haven't been able to play it the last 2 weeks overseas, but DraftKings available over there in the UK. Thank you so much to them for that. But I am on the opposite end of you with Jalen Hurts. I think I'm pretty steadfast with this. I mean, Tampa Bay, you're able to get after on the ground. I like Saquon Barkley. I like Jalen Hurts. I don't think I have to try to guess about Dotson. I think it's basically going to be Dallas Goedert for me, or maybe Cachuera or Calcaterra. I think those are the kind of guys that make some sense to take some shots on. Tight end has been so dusty that yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be going completely nuts and having like 30-40% Dallas Goedert for me today. But if I'm playing Jalen Hurts out there and he is currently in 12% of my lineups, I have a little bit more of him on FanDuel where, that ceiling can be so high for him. I think he's an easy single with Goddard. And, I'll have some Hurts and Barkley lineups where it's just like, hey, Tampa Bay gives up nearly 140 per game on the ground. Let's just come up with the game script where Kellen Moore just pounds the rock. They're extremely effective with it. Did we see if Vita Vea was in today, by the way? Because I know he was questionable. And that was the last defensive guy I really wanted to see because I don't know if you know this, but he stops the run at a pretty phenomenal clip.
He's like 400 pounds.
He is a bowling ball in a football uniform. It's actually insane.
Yeah, he's literally like 400 pounds. But he's athletic. That's no slight to him. Like, they just don't make humans like that. He's what you would come out of if you were designing humans in labs.
Well, we're not too far away from that.
There's going to be a lot of Myles Garrett's walking around.
That's really terrifying to think about because he looks fake. Like, Myles Garrett looks fake.
Yeah, Myles Garrett looks fake, but then you have like hyper athletes like Jordan Davis and Vita Vea who don't look, as built as Myles Garrett, but are equally as athletic when you actually consider their weight. Playing close to like 400 pounds is unbelievable.
He is in, by the way. Vita Vea is active for today, so that is good to see. Yeah, I love twitter.com or X or whatever the kids are calling it these days. It's Twitter still. It's still called tweets, so whatever.
You have to put formerly Twitter in your, like, I don't know, slogan, title thing. Your rebrand didn't go so well.
I'm not going to say it. Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Anthony Richardson, dear Lord, my friend, and Aaron Rodgers. These are guys that are pretty interesting, I think, for tournaments. I mean, not the A-Rich side. I mean, is A-Rich just broken at this point? Pittsburgh defense, very, very difficult. So, of course, this is the game where he probably rushes for 100 and a score, 2 of them, and just pain and suffering personified. But I look at this mid 6K range. It's pulling all the ownership on today's slate. Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, I think one of my favorite tournament targets on both sites today. Kyler Murray, I don't really know what to say about that game. It's got nearly a 50 total. It's kind of fluctuated in and out of that 50, 51 where it opened, 49.5, kind of booing all over the place, mainly because both of these defenses are not so good, Matt Gajewski. But how do we utilize this in our DFS lineups? Because I don't really want to play like 20, 25% of both of these guys. I would rather be a little bit more flat at the quarterback position, take a couple of calculated shots, but it's really hard to build out 150 without a lot of those two guys. How are you planning to utilize them today?
I have them both capped at 15. I will take no more than 15% of either of them, which is basically where we have them in tournaments, and I'm seriously considering bringing that down. It's the only total on the slate that's any good, so that's also partially why, I mean, there's a lot of factors. The defenses are bad, the quarterbacks are talented, they can both run, so that's why the total's up where it is. But I mean, you're still walking into ownership, you're paying for both guys, neither of them are particularly cheap. Both of them aren't very unique in like the stacking combinations you can make unless you get extremely dusty. Like, one of the highest owned tight ends in the slate is the backup for Arizona. Daniels, you have to use McLaurin if you're stacking. For Kyler, you basically only feel comfortable about Marvin and the punt tight end. Dortch and Wilson are pretty dusty. So, I mean, you're walking into a ton of ownership. I think I would rather just fade the game. And plus, the combined ownership is like 50% on these quarterbacks at times. In certain fields, it's going to be. In larger field, you're looking at closer to like 30%. If you just have like a nuclear game from Stroud or anyone else, like you're shaving off 30% minimum of the ownership. And that doesn't even include other pass catchers and stacks and stuff.
Yeah, what's annoying is the Jaden Daniels, 10 rushing attempts in all 3 games, at least 10 rushing attempts in all 3 games. And that's in combined with the fact that he is airing the ball out. I mean, a couple of those deep shots, we all saw.
He did once. One game he did that. 2 games he threw it behind the line of scrimmage 30 times.
Correct. The ADOT was ridiculous for like every rookie though in week 1. And I think, what we're seeing in the NFL is, with 2 high safeties, and we're seeing, I mean, the run rates are out of control here so far this season, but it's at least nice to see that they're willing to let him go air it out. I mean, 29 pass attempts against the Giants there in week 2 wasn't exactly nothing for a guy who's also adding 10 and 44 on the ground, has 3 touchdowns with his legs, 2 through the air. I think we're going to just continue to see him be a fantasy monster, and he's probably underpriced at 6,500, but we're trying to win.
Are you not concerned by just they faced 2 bottom 3 pass rushes in 2 consecutive weeks? I don't think.
What is Arizona? What is Arizona?
Probably the same.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a horrible offensive line.
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
there's definitely we're talking bad on bad here. So I don't think the deep shots are a given. I don't know if he has time. Like when you have 2 horrible units facing each other, one of them's going to win. Their line has won twice, barely. The Bengals are the stone worst defensive line, and the Giants might be too. They have Dexter Lawrence, who last week, great game plan. They just double teamed him at the highest rate since 2012, and then it erased their whole team. So I don't know, man. I'm not buying Cliff Kingsbury or this offensive line still.
I mean, you have Nichols and Collier. I mean, these are 2 of the worst interior linemen in all of football on the defensive side for Arizona. I think James Conner, I think James Conner on the Arizona side, and then Brian Robinson on the Washington side are obviously guys who I'm kind of hoping eat up a lot of the total of this game, because something's going to break here. I'm just hoping it's more at the running back position with the way that I'm building, because then it allows me to build out some of these other stacks, such as I love Aaron Rodgers for tournaments today against Denver. 1.62% ownership over on DraftKings, and you have Breece Hall and you have Garrett Wilson, 2 guys who are going in the top 15 of every fantasy football draft known to mankind. And when you get these kind of skill position players and you get them at really, really low ownership because the total's disgusting in both these defenses. I mean, Patrick Surtain, very serviceable there on the Denver side. And I mean, you can name off the entire Jets side. It's going to look pretty good. But I just got to think that these are the kind of 1%ers, 2%ers that I really want to be overweight to when you have consolidated 15, 16% chalk, because if those games fail, or if you have, Robinson and Connor eat up and absorb a lot of those touchdowns, hopefully for me today, I think Aaron Rodgers is really, really appealing. He's been better. We know that, single stacking and probably not the ideal route. You could probably put Conklin in at the tight end position and nobody's clicking on him whatsoever. But I mean, God, Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, it is hard for me to look at better skill position players than that in the NFL. And nobody wants to play Aaron Rodgers as the guy to complement them. Sounds great. I have 8% of him. It's not like I'm playing 25%. I'm maybe hitting this a little hard, but my point is that if I'm going to be 10% on Kyler Murray, 8% on Jane Daniels, like I currently am, I'm going to rerun it one more time. I want to be overweight to a couple of these guys that are 1-2%. And I think Aaron Rodgers fits the bill. I haven't heard anybody talk about him this week because who do you want to run him back with from Denver? Nobody, more than likely. But I like these spots. Brock Purdy, you could probably say the same thing at a little bit more ownership, but low 6s. Anybody you like?
Low 6s, Brock Purdy, I have a little bit of interest in. This is a sprinkling. Jordan Love is primarily the guy I'll use in this area. I don't have any interest in Aaron Rodgers. I believe I X'd him out.
Okay.
If not, it's a sprinkling. I just don't know what upside he gets you. That team wants to run the ball as much as they possibly can. They play at one of the slowest rates in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is constantly letting play clocks run to 0 unless he can catch you off sides or something like that. Then he'll snap the ball quickly, which is rare. And then I'm very interested in that Minnesota Green Bay game. We're hearing a lot about the Minnesota defensive coordinator who's turned kind of like rags to riches with that defense so far this year. But that's a defense Jordan Love has historically played really well against on small samples. Diced him up last year. It was a very different looking defense, especially in week 17 for Minnesota when guys were hurt. But Love's not being played. He's not expensive. He's a player that I think has a lot more upside than Aaron Rodgers or someone else in this range, just kind of systematically with the offense. Stacking him's tricky, but I'm not entirely sure it matters a ton. Basically, you avoid Watson and Dontavian Wicks, who are splitting time, and then you have pretty good target shares and route participations for Dobbs and Jaden Reed. So he's my favorite, but I won't lie to you, this isn't my favorite range. Instead of playing anyone in the low 6s, I would rather just go straight down to the 5s.
Okay. Jordan Love, I have no idea what to make of him. 6K feels like it's underpriced, but again, I don't know the mobility. this feels like a spot where Brian Flores, the blitz, is either going to absolutely get there and destroy Green Bay, or you're going to see Christian Watson catch a couple of deep balls, Jaden Reed take a couple of house calls, and it's going to get to like shootout levels. I think Green Bay, Minnesota, kind of an underutilized game stack today as well. And you and I, you should know by now, Aaron Jones, yes.
Yeah, I agree with you on the game. I am trying to find, because basically we have two games that are decent totals. One's really good. That's Washington, Arizona, of course. And everything is parked around 40, give or take 1 or 2 points. When you have all those games like parked around 40, I'm trying to find ones that have something that you could possibly look to for a sneaky shootout. Is it pace, good quarterbacks, offenses, schemes? And I think most of them don't have anything that's worthwhile outside of, you know, broken plays or turnovers. But this Minnesota Green Bay game does have something I'm interested in. Efficient quarterback play, 2 good scheme coaches on offense. And Green Bay in particular has a very suspect defense. I still have my questions with Minnesota. Luckily, they have one of the best defensive play callers in the entire NFL. But this could quickly turn into a shootout, especially on the Green Bay side.
Yeah, I mean, not to be like team hashtag watch the tape, but NFL Premium's pretty great to go and just like watch stuff after the fact, especially when you are overseas and you're trying to like stay somewhat informed rather than just going to the pub at games start at 6 p.m. out there, and then next wave starts up at 9 p.m. Final wave 1:15 a.m. for Sunday Night Football. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of Sunday and Monday Night Football when I was over there, but there's no doubt that you look at what Van Ginkel's been doing on the Minnesota Vikings side. I mean, I couldn't be more excited to just have somebody out of the middle of nowhere spike. I mean, in 2023, he was I think he was one of the #1 coverage grade guys. But now as an edge rusher, finding ways to he's almost like perfect for Brian Flores, where he can play coverage and he can just get to you on the edge. I mean, it's incredible stuff from a defensive lineman. I love that man so much. But then there's no doubt that Jordan Love, somebody just said that he sucks in the chat. I wish Jordan Love sucked as a Vikings fan. That would be very helpful, but I do not think he does. I think he's kind of proven the opposite. We'll see how healthy he is. I think that's the main issue for today, how mobile he's going to be. But they took their time with him. Malik Willis bought them some time, and now he's probably ready to rock. Jair Alexander out, obviously, very important as well. We brought that up on the outset for the Minnesota side. But
yeah, he's their only good secondary player other than McKinney.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Green Bay is not a good defense. They're just not.
They should be better. They invest a ton of resources into it. But like when you have first round picks like Stokes be wildly average, Quay Walker be a legitimate liability as a first round pick, like this is what happens, man. Like sometimes you miss on your first round picks, and when you're drafting off ball linebackers in round 1, it's kind of costly, and then you turn into a shootout team, which is better for DFS.
Yeah, somebody came at me to jumping on a show earlier at the tail end of this week when I got back, saying Eric Wilson's like the #1 guy in PFF grading. Well, I'm like, yeah, it's a 3-game sample size, and look at the other 8 years of sample size we have on him. He is trash. So Eric Wilson, he's like he's going to be the up there linebacker for Green Bay. I'm like, what are we talking about here? He's played how many snaps on special teams? He's had like 18 kickoff coverages, 12 kickoff returns, 12 punt coverage returns, 9 punt returns. What are we doing here? Stop it.
I don't know. They have potential because they have a lot of resources invested in it. And we have 3 games of a new DC who gives you some unique looks.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They haven't maximized the talent, that's for sure. And their pass rush has been bad. And that's another unit they haven't maximized talent. I don't know what you're doing with Van Ness and stuff. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the Packers defense that much.
Well, we kind of are. It's fun to talk ball. It's fun to, jump up on the bar stool and go back and forth and spar. People, it's okay to say that you think Green Bay has a good defense. They have good pieces. I have certain guys that I like. I mean, Xavier McKinney, I'll take him on the Vikings right now.
I think they have potential, but they have not been good. This is
correct.
I mean, you can separate this. You could do it looking forward and think that they're going to play better based on their talent, and I wouldn't disagree with you. But objectively, to this point, they have not been good. You cannot argue against that.
Before we get to the sub 6K range, because I do think that's going to be where Matt has a majority of his tournament plays coming from, based on what we've been talking about. We got a couple of super chats here, starting with Mr. CoolCam97. It just came in for $5. Any priority plays from the Baltimore Buffalo game on FanDuel? Yeah, Derrick Henry, he scores touchdowns. He's a FanDuel exclusive play for me. Well, you can't play him on DraftKings for the main slate, obviously, but seems like he'd be a pretty good play. No, Matt?
Yeah, he's a good play, but no one that's a real priority for me. No one I'm going out of my way to jam.
Yeah, let me just take a look at my FanDuel lineups. I do think Josh Allen is obviously appealing. It's a 46.5 total, or at least it
He's
was.
so expensive though.
I know. That's what's really annoying, but I do love that they're intertwining the Sunday night game at least. And it's hard to look at any pass catchers from the Buffalo side and feel any type of way. I mean, Keon Coleman is just they're going to look in hindsight, that Xavier Worthy thing. It's already looking a little bit dicey, although it's very early and you don't want to overreact, but you know, we live in a society that is eternally overreacting at this point in time. And you know, what else do we have to talk about? 46.5 total though for that game. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, those are the two guys I have the most of from it, but Derrick Henry's really it for me. I have 8% of him. So there you go. Nothing that's a priority for me as well. Thank you so much though for the super chat. And then we have, where'd it go? Cheddarhead, $1.99. Good luck to you today, although I don't mean that. Rank for my flex, Chuba, Rachaad White, or Waddle full PPR. The Rachaad White thing makes me want to bang my head against a wall because Bucky Irving, late add to the injury report with the hamstring injury. There was talk that earlier in the week that he had earned more carries, maybe because Rachaad White has shown for the last 2 years that he is not a good runner of the football. Decent enough pass catcher, okay at the goal line if need be, but like, my God, is he inefficient. And Bucky Irving, extremely efficient, was so at Oregon, has been so far in 3 games at the NFL level. And with this hamstring issue, I'm a little bit nervous about both of their workloads. I think Rachaad White, just coming off of like food poisoning and whatever else, late ad yesterday, I'm not sure what it was. I feel like teams are going to, you know, hey, we don't want to get fined if anything were to accidentally happen. So they're going to put everything on the injury report these days. But how do you look at that workload being? Because I think this is pretty clearly for me, Chuba 1, Waddle 2, and Rachaad White 3. What a time to be alive.
I think I would just flip Waddle and White, but it's very close between those two. And I don't disagree that Chuba should be definitively the 1. I don't think Rachaad White's ever fully taking over, or Bucky Irving for that matter, just because Rachaad is such a good pass blocker and pass catcher. What he does between the tackles has been bad, and Bucky's definitely deserving of more work, but he's also 195 pounds. I don't know at what point you just give the keys to any 195-pound back. So I don't think that's ever really likely to totally flip his direction. 50-50 max.
Yeah, it's so gross right now. Again, I'm pretty convinced that Bucky Irving, or I was at the beginning of the year, I think we talked about that when Rachaad White was mega chalk week 1, that I thought Bucky Irving was going to win the first down, second down work very early on in this season. And I think that was the case, or that looked like it was going to be the case until, of course, the hamstring injury here for week 4. But best of luck to you. Hopefully we were a little bit helpful. And I repeat, if that is, a moniker for the Green Bay Packers, no luck to you at all in terms of Minnesota. Skull, baby. Let's go to the sub 6K range, excuse me, because Matt, this is where I think you are probably highlighting a number of your tournament plays in lineups. I find it to be an interesting range. Trevor Lawrence could not have looked worse, but now this is supposedly a game where they should be trailing, should have shootout potential. A lot of people playing Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs at the wide receiver position. And then Sam Darnold, he has just shown out every single game here for my Minnesota Vikings. 5,700 for him, sub 3% on the road in Green Bay, small dogs. I'm going to be taking some shots for sure on him. And Caleb Williams couldn't have looked worse whatsoever. I kind of like all 3 of those guys, being Lawrence, Darnold, and Williams, more than I like playing Fields at his current ownership. I think Arthur Smith's it's so weird to say, he's done a good job right now at utilizing what it is that Pittsburgh needs to do to win football games. 1, run the ball, and 2, don't turn it over. Like Justin Fields, don't make bad decisions, and we're probably going to win with our defense. And that's going to be what I think they do the rest of the year. But does that help him today? I'm not sure against Indy. They've been gettable on the ground. We're going to see Justin Fields scamper for like 40, 50 yards at some point, but I think at 7%, I'm willing to get to a little bit more of the guys above him. Is that how you're seeing it as well, or how are you utilizing the upper 5s?
Caleb Williams is my favorite. That's the sneakiest shootout, I think, on the slate with just pacing in the game. You have 2 top 10 teams in terms of pace. One defense certainly doesn't scare you, and that's the Rams. Caleb Williams also dropped back 52 times in their last game. They can't run, so you are seeing a shift in their pass rate over expectation. It's been rising week over week. Now you're in week 4 for a team that is the worst rushing attack in the NFL. They'll be trotting out Roshan today in some sort of tryout. So we'll see if that is a big component of the game plan. But I'm not really looking for the Bears to be a run-heavy team the rest of the way, which should give Caleb a lot of volume. Whether it's efficient or not, I don't really care. The Rams are a bad team, on defense especially, and they're getting back Keenan Allen today. He can't possibly play worse than he has, and he had a 300-yard game in their last contest. So I'll take shots on him at 5,600 while he's this cheap. He's my favorite. Love what you said about Darnold. There's a ton of ways Minnesota can exploit this Green Bay defense. Green Bay doesn't have the corners to hang with Justin Jefferson. I don't know if they have the corners to hang with their secondary receivers either. Green Bay has also been a massive liability on the ground. And what Minnesota has done really well this year is spread teams out, get them into the too high look, the too high look that everyone's talking about, been popularized by teams defending Patrick Mahomes. That's not unique to just Mahomes. A lot of QBs get that look now. The Vikings have been one of the most successful teams running out of that look, and they have just two elite offensive tackles. The Packers pass rush has not lived up to expectation this year. They've been wildly average. They do have some good names who've underachieved, so that doesn't mean they won't get better moving forward. But man, I really like this Vikings team to move the ball and score on the Packers, and then kind of by default, that's why I like Green Bay on the other side if they're in trail mode. Otherwise, I am interested in Andy Dalton again. Cincinnati has no pass rush whatsoever. They are the stone worst pass rush in the NFL. So Dalton should have time to deliver the ball to Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, Mingo, whoever else. That about does it for me. I have no interest in Fields, little interest in Lawrence, some interest in Deshaun Watson, because that is also a sneaky pace game, but I'm just not sure Vegas is really going to show any life on the other side without Devontae Adams. I guess Brock Bowers is a player that's dynamic. But one other thing that works in Watson's favor, no Max Crosby. So that pass rush is now lifeless too. I don't know if Watson still can take advantage of it, but that's about where I'm cutting things off in the 5K range. A lot of exposure to Caleb Williams, Sam Darnold, some to Dalton, sprinklings of Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we talk a little Jerome Ford sub 6K, a guy that don't know why, but I have double-digit exposure to. That'll be really, really fun. I just find Vegas to be just this was the weirdest line of the week for me, and then now I feel like I've missed the boat because everybody is on the Cleveland side of things. Max Crosby, Devontae Adams. When you take the best offensive and defensive player from your football team off the field, I just couldn't believe that the line wasn't reacting to those kind of things. And yeah, I think Brock Bowers from a DFS perspective, Tucker we'll talk about as well, which I don't know a ton about him other than, what I've seen from preseason stuff and different reporting. Maybe you can give me some insight into that when we talk cheap wide receivers. But I find Gardner Minshew to be somebody that you don't really need today, even if they're in come from behind mode. I've got a feeling that it's not going to be super successful for them trying to move the football. Sub 40 total in that one, 37
They were talking
total
about him
dome.
getting benched. So I'm worried about his leash.
Yeah, I'm too. Like legitimately, they're down a score or two, and Aiden O'Connell comes in, wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, he's already come in this year, and there have been talks that they might move to him at some point. So I have no confidence in. Well, you're definitely not playing O'Connell, but Minshew, I'm definitely not playing either.
Yeah. Not going to be playing him, but we'll be talking about that one. I'm going to be paying attention to that line, potentially betting something there. And hey, if you want to be able to tail such things, if I do end up pulling the trigger on that, or my friend Matt Kajeski over there, we're both in Tails by OddsShopper, which is a fantastic place for you to jump into a marketplace where we have DK DFS, we have Defy the Odds, we have these amazing sports handicappers from so many different platforms, all in one easy to find space. It is called Tails, simply because you're able to tail our exact plays and get notifications the moment we make a bet directly to your phone. So download the OddsShopper app, and once you subscribe to any of us, myself, Matt Kajeski, and you can use Lindy50 if you would like to sign up and get any of my plays for 50% off here for your first week or first month. You have an opportunity to get those plays directly to your phone in the moment that it happens and be able to place them yourself. That, I think, is worth the price of admission itself because lines move. Times, things change, and especially in the NBA, that is going to be vital in terms of my process and everybody else's process that's successful that I know betting NBA, to be able to react to injury news in the moment, make quick and concise decisions. And hey, when you have those notifications set up on your phone, you'll be able to do it instantaneously alongside me. So check out Tails by OddsShopper. Check out all the amazing cappers that we have within that marketplace. and would love to see you guys there in the Discord. So many different Discords that you can be a part of and talk with some really sharp sports bettors on a day in, day out basis. Would love to hang out with you there. All righty, to the running back position we go. And now we're going to have a lot of fun here on DraftKings.com because the expensive guys are all just like, they look so damn good. Saquon Barkley is low owned against Tampa Bay, which, yeah, Vita Vea is in. That doesn't help as much, but without Devonta Smith out there in the slot, with A.J. Brown and out as well, I mean, these are just guys that we got to expect them to just be hammering the rock today to some extent. And Saquon Barkley feels a little bit underprojected, seems a little bit low owned to me, but Breece Hall up top, he's surely getting a lot of attention. I do think we see things swing back towards his direction. Remember, it was a short week last week for the Jets. Braylon Allen ended up playing a little bit more. He's been awesome out of Wisconsin, and I really like his game, but this is Breece Hall's backfield, so 7,800 I think is a great number. People are getting there in a prominent way. Alvin Kamara, we've seen his upside 2 of the 3 weeks. Week 3, obviously, they had a little bit of regression towards the mean, but I still think he's an awesome tournament target. Bijan Robinson, Kyron Williams. I mean, so many good plays in the 7K range. And then there's great plays on the cheap end. How do we start parsing together in our lineups who we really want to target up here, Matt?
I think you can play one expensive guy. This is largely for, cash game, small risk stuff, smaller field stuff. And my preference is Breece. Even with Braylon Allen playing quite a bit in this offense, we've seen their willingness to run the ball just like 40 times. And they're playing Denver, who lost Singleton, one of their better linebackers. This is one of the bigger spreads on the week. Wouldn't be surprised if New York just takes the air out of the ball entirely, which is another reason I'm pretty concerned with Aaron Rodgers. But that doesn't really mean a whole lot in terms of Breece's workload. When games are more competitive, a higher percentage of the workload goes to Breece. When games are less competitive and Braylon Allen plays a little bit more, it doesn't matter because they run the ball so many times that Breece is still approaching 20-ish carries, 20-ish touches, whatever it may be. So I don't have any real concerns with Breece. The only way I don't think he gets there is if they are in significant negative game script, which is one of the least likely outcomes on the entire slate. So he's my favorite expensive guy. The reason Saquon doesn't project well is this game has a minuscule total, and it's basically a pick'em. Philly's a slight favorite. So when you just have higher spreads, higher team totals, like you're going to see players out project Saquon. They're just not expected to score as many points. So I think that's why. Otherwise, Kyron, I think, is decent for GPPs. That's a game I do like. So I am trying to get more of Kyron right now. He doesn't project as well as the players we mentioned. So you really got to finesse things and give him boosts. But we saw their game plan without Kupp and Nakua last game. It's basically just feed Kyron 25 times, as many touches as he can possibly handle. You can clearly see Sean McVay thinks he has one legitimate offensive weapon right now.
I think he does have just one offensive weapon right now. However, there are 3 spots on today's slate that I'm just legitimately worried that I'm under. Something's going to pop at really, really low ownership. Those 3 spots are the Rams, where obviously every pass catcher, specifically Kupp, Nakua, with them out, we haven't seen anybody really take the bull by the horns. I mean, Demarcus Robinson, you would expect to potentially be the guy, but Tutu Atwell has been out on the field a little bit more. Jordan Whittington, from what we saw in the preseason, I'm surprised he's not out there a little bit more. Green Bay is the other one where I just don't know where to go with any of those pass catchers. And then Vegas, where, it could break a number of different ways. Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, and nobody really wants to get to the quarterback of any of these 3 teams. And that's what's so weird to me about some of the guys on this slate. But at the running back position, with the expensive guys here, I mean, Kyron Williams has to be my favorite. I mean, he's just so secure with this role. Pass catching, any game script, they're down 14, down 21. I think he's still out there over Blake Corum, who's just not going to see the field here with the Rams, it would appear. I think Kyron Williams probably 1 for me, Bijan Robinson 2, Breece Hall a little bit 3rd there, but obviously I talked about Aaron Rodgers, kind of mixing him in to some of my lineups here at super low ownership, just as one where, hey, Breece Hall takes a screen pass to the house. You have, Garrett Wilson, who even against Surtain, I think is going to be very serviceable. Yeah, I think the 7K range is awesome, but then we get to the low, the mid 6s. People now want to play our boy Aaron Jones, nearly 10% owned. James Conner, I am way overweight to. Jordan Mason, I am way overweight to. These are the guys that I really want to be jamming in my lineups. Kind of just feels like luxury items up in the 7K range, like the upper sevens being Saquon and Breece Hall. These are the dudes that I'm really landing on. Brian Robinson as well at 6,100. I'm overweight to him. I mean, just give me the entire 6K range, my friend.
I like the 6K range a lot. I'm in the middle of a rerun right now, so I'll tell you where I end up. But I know two of the players that I am a little more exposed to than the field are Aaron Jones. Mentioned some of the matchup stuff. He's been pushing 20 touches in a lot of games this year with an excellent pass catching role. You're seeing Ty Chandler come in around 35-ish% of the snaps, give or take, on a weekly basis. That's a bigger snap share for Jones than we've seen most of the seasons in Green Bay, which is solid for him. The matchup's not hard. I am interested in Jacobs on the other side. All right, my rerun finished. But you're basically just competing with Emmanuel Wilson. No Marshawn Lloyd on injured reserve. Vikings matchup's not good. It's not bad. It's pretty neutral. And now you have Love coming back. So I think you're seeing Jacobs maybe a little expensive compared to the role he would have been playing if Malik Willis, if they didn't have Malik Willis in there. But those are two players. Otherwise, the 6K range. James Conner is another player that is semi-owned in this Arizona-Washington game. I prefer getting to him than most of the pass game on both sides. You shave off a little bit of ownership. I don't have any problem with Jordan Mason or Brian Robinson, but I am coming in a little lower on these two players, and it's kind of just by default. One of the stands I'm making is just playing that Green Bay game.
I think something to pay attention to, and it probably is going to matter more for the afternoon slate. I'm very curious what happens with the actives and actives. If we see Rodriguez, I mean, he got elevated to the active roster. He's a flat 4K. I'm not sure if we see like a 1-for-1 swap to the Austin Eckler stuff, but Chris Rodriguez at 4K for the afternoon slate is at least something you should have on your radar, because McNichols, he can play, and he played 8 snaps, but like, I legitimately think Rodriguez can be a better pass catcher for that role. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like big braining it a little bit and trying to think about it too much. Like, Brian Robinson can be okay in the passing game. They just, whether it was the coaching regime before or now, they just never give him those kind of opportunities. But with Eckler out, I'm just curious how that's going to end up shaking out. Brian Robinson, though, no doubt about it. I'm hoping he and James Conner have big games, and the rest of that game just fades into the abyss. That would be lovely, outside of maybe a little bit of Elijah Higgins, but just because he's cheap. Let's go to, Aaron Jones. How much Aaron Jones today? Are we talking 20% like me?
I have 15%, so I'm not, he's actually pretty owned, so I'm not really that overexposed to him.
Oh yeah, we were way over last time out. I mean, against Houston, he was the eternal slam. 2%.
He's been good, so it's hard to like come in super overweight to him at this point. People are onto him a little bit.
Yep, sucks. Cool. 5K range. Now we can get down to some real dusty plays, but I mean, not that dusty. They're projecting out pretty darn well. Hi, Najee Harris. Welcome to the program. Chuba Hubbard, hubba, coming with Andy Dalton for the party last time out. Andy Dalton made everybody pretty serviceable. And Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is a really interesting tournament play there, 5,900. Kind of the guy. I mean, it's pretty wild to see Zach Moss be as successful in Indy and then with Cincinnati as what he's been, but 5,900 for him in a must-win spot. I think they're obviously going to continue giving him the work. I kind of like getting to these guys, but the field has a lot of Hubbard and Najee. I'm underweight to both of them at their respective ownership, but not fades by any means. Do you have any strong stands here, upper 5?
I do like Najee a fair amount. We just know the game plan for this team. It's going to be run the ball incessantly. Hubbard, I'm fine with too. I think you basically just have the same workload for 1,000 less compared to all the running backs we just talked about. There's a reason they're 1,000 less. They're largely unexciting runners, but I don't really think that matters. Pittsburgh could easily get pulled into some sort of up-tempo game, at least compared to their own seconds per play. Indy's the fastest team in the NFL. And Hubbard, they're playing the weakest defensive line in the NFL. So, I mean, it's hard to poke holes in them. I'm not being too aggressive on any running backs on this slate because, a lot of the guys I'm overexposed to, you don't need to be making massive stands to be overexposed to them. So I do find myself a little more spread today, but Najee, Hubbard, fades by no means.
Yeah. Mason, $5 super chat. And then he's like, super chats. It was like 2 minutes. Give me a second here. I feel like Kyren is a much better play / matchup than Bijan for DK cash. Am I faded? Ownership is closer than I'd like. This is why you want to play multiple sites. And this is kind of why I'm playing a lot on FanDuel here today. I find some of the ownership to be difficult on DK as far as, figuring out what to do amongst some of those top 7K backs and rotating them in. But then you get these pricing differences. Breece Hall is 8K on FanDuel. Kyren Williams is 8,100 on FanDuel. Bijan Robinson is 8,300. So it looks a little bit different relative to other sites. Jordan Mason's 8,800 on FanDuel. I have basically no Jordan Mason there. On DK, I have all of the Jordan Masons. So for me, I'm just playing some of the salary constructions and letting the Sims duel do its thing for tournaments. But from a cash perspective, yeah, I think Bijan Robinson's the far better cash play over Kyren Williams. How about you, Matt?
I agree. I think it's maybe a little closer than you, but I'm with you. I think it's Bijan for sure.
Yeah, I think it's Bijan for sure. And so, yeah, if you want to get some exposure to Kyren for cash, I think maybe looking over to the FanDuel side of things makes a little bit more sense. There's a case for maybe playing him over Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson on cash there, and then just playing Hall or Robinson as the 2 main running backs over on DK. And I think you're playing Najee Harris in both cash builds. So no matter what, as much as I don't like Najee Harris because, we see him run for 3 yards every damn down, I already see it. I have 18% Najee, and I feel like I want to lower that for tournaments.
I'm slightly above that. I'm parking it.
That's a good idea. Park the bus. Anything from the cheaper? I forgot to bring up Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford, he's sandwiched right between Hubbard and Najee Harris. I think he gets a majority of the work here against a Vegas team that is missing Max Crosby. Heard he's pretty good at football. I think Cleveland will be semi-successful. I don't really know how to get to any Amari Cooper or really anything from the Cleveland passing game without Njoku out on the field. He's been out for a while now. I think that's been like an underutilized or under-talked about part about why Cleveland has been a little bit more ineffective or why Watson's been a little bit more ineffective. The tail end of last year, Njoku was winning tournaments for everybody on a week-in, week-out basis. And you're missing a very dynamic playmaker there. Without him there, though, Jerome Ford, I do think does enough in the passing game as well. 5,700, you're trying to get different and just basically watch how Hubbard and Harris play in the early slate of games. Late swap yourself into that same salary range. And, if Hubbard and Harris fail, Jerome Ford could end up being the guy, but that'll be more of a late swap decision for me for sure. Lower fives, I don't have really anything here. Is there anything else to talk about besides maybe Roschon Johnson?
Cam Akers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Cam Akers. He showed up out of the middle of nowhere with I was a little bit surprised to see that Joe Mixon practiced on Friday and then gets ruled out for this one. But suppose you want to be cautious with the guy. And we have a very high optimal percentage on Cam Akers relative to his ownership right now. 5,300. What are you planning to do with him?
I'm going to be over the field. He burned everyone last week, so no one wants to play him.
Yeah.
It was essentially the worst run out you could possibly have against Minnesota. They immediately got down, negative game script the entire game. And Houston does a really dumb thing and uses Dare Gumbawale in those situations where all he does is pass block. So in a game script where they should pound Jacksonville, you expect Cam Akers to handle a large majority of the early down work. And then some third downs, Dare will come in and do his pass blocking thing when he needs to. Still projects well. He's extremely cheap. Nice pivot off the other players if you don't want to play a lot of them. That's Hubbard and Najee from this range. So yeah, I like Akers. I'll be using him and hoping maybe he's even a little lower owned as people were burned by him last week.
Yeah, Boss Pro, Ford might not even get all the carries. That's, again, the passing game involvement matters for a guy like Jerome Ford. And again, it's not that I don't think, again, Foreman, you're basically looking for the Gus Edwards type games. Gus Edwards 2023 games for clarification there. It hasn't worked out so well for him with the Chargers, but 18 carries for 40 and 2 touchdowns. That's the Deonta Foreman path to success, I think, today, if you were to be looking that direction. I will not be. Roschon season, I have a little bit of Roschon. That's pretty much it for the running back position. Anything else that you want to talk about?
I have Roschon too, but it's largely the product of me giving boosts to the Green Bay, Minnesota and the Chicago, LA game.
Gotcha. We'll give a boost to your bankroll right now with Bet365. How about that? That's called transitioning. We got Bet365 friends available in multiple states throughout the U.S., including Pennsylvania now. Pennsylvania, your newest available state there. Arizona, Kentucky, Virginia, New Jersey, Iowa. So many different great states for you to sign up and utilize this offer. Bet5, get $200 in bonus bets. Even if you don't plan to play on Bet365 long-term, it's okay to utilize $5 to get 200 in bonus bets right now at the link in chat that Jordan Klein has provided or in the video description box below. I'm telling you right now, you want to build and sustain a bankroll? Take advantage of every sportsbook offer. Take advantage of every DFS offer. Take advantage of any offer where people are giving you tons and tons of ROI in order to just put $5 into play, but available at Colorado, Louisiana, Virginia, Kentucky, New Jersey, Arizona, Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. Come on and raise up. Take your shirt off, twist it around your head, spin it like a helicopter, and head over to Bet365. Only if you're 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. 2, the wide receiver position. And oh my dear sweet Lord, we've got a lot of game stacks, a lot of different ways to construct some of these guys, but I want to start with Houston Jacksonville because Nico Collins was in question of maybe missing this game. And now he is mega chalk. Nico Collins. Maybe this is just because everybody is so certain Nico Collins is such a smash against Jacksonville today. I don't feel that way. I'm way underweight to Nico Collins, and I feel as though I'm taking crazy pills right now. This is going to look really, really good or really, really bad in hindsight, and I know it to be true, but like 28% ownership on DK for one pass catcher and a guy that could it be Diggs today? Could we get some ADOT to go his direction? With Tank Dell out, I understand that Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs and even Dalton Schultz are going to look better, but this is also a spot where against Jacksonville, they could probably just utilize a combination of Akers and Agumbawale, still be semi-successful. Ball can get spread around. 15, 16 for Nico Collins, I would be more than okay with, and just being way underweight to it. How are you looking at Nico Collins amongst these expensive wide receivers? Because he feels like a huge talking point for my lineups and what I'm planning on doing. Are you over, under, or right around the field on 28% Nico Collins?
I'm overweight to Nico Collins. He's my most owned receiver, but I don't fault what you're doing, man. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong. You have to make choices. We already talked about the running back position. You know, some of the low owned stands I've made. It's in the it's in the cheaper areas. It's playing Josh Jacobs, some more Aaron Jones in the field, and then guys like Chuba Hubbard, Cam Akers. But that allows you to get to expensive receivers. I'm severely underweight to players like Trey Tucker and Jonathan Mingo and all the dust balls that people are clicking into their lineups to jam Breece Hall. And that affords you the opportunity to play some of these studs. From a talent perspective, I don't think anyone's questioning Nico Collins. He legitimately might be a top 5 NFL receiver at this point. I don't think that's really even debatable. Jacksonville has no one that can cover him. Houston still hasn't played with a super high pass rate over expectation. So that is a bit of a concern, but honestly, it hasn't mattered. They've been so efficient with Stroud that they still get there. And you have Tank Dell out. That should only help. So I'm not worried about Nico whatsoever. You're right, though. If he gets like 16 and Diggs scores the touchdowns, that would certainly tank you. But Diggs is my third most owned receiver, so I'm not really all that worried about the Houston Texans passing game. Absolutely smashing these guys.
We're going to see CJ Stroud north of like 10% in small field, aren't we?
Probably. That was my big concern with this, going back to the beginning of the show. I'm worried about Stroud getting steamed because everyone is everything I've heard this morning. I've been listening to shows since I got up. Everyone's playing Jaden Daniels. Everyone's playing Kyler Murray. Everyone's playing Arizona, Washington. We can't play it. We got to make a pivot. Stroud's the best pivot. So I don't know, man. Like, there is a lot of leveling in DFS these days. Almost everyone's using tools. So I don't know. I'm not going to change it because I trust our tools. That leaves me to Nico and Diggs. Like, I'm not going to change that.
I'm so nervous about this. I think he's don't get me wrong. You're playing cash. You're clicking Nico Collins. He's the first guy in your lineup. I'm not saying Nico Collins sucks. Nico Collins is incredible. I think he's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL as well. I mean, in some order, you're putting Justin Jefferson up there. You're putting Garrett Wilson up there because he's done it with every quarterback under the sun, and you can't tell me otherwise. We're going to see a big year at the tail end with Garrett Wilson. I mean, when healthy, the Nakua Cup combination is just absurd. Devontae Adams with any other team on planet Earth. But there's no doubt that his talent level is up there with a lot of those guys. And he's got the best quarterback of most of the guys that I just described here as well. I just get really nervous about the ownership. I really, really do. If he is 30% in the milli or 25, north of 25% in the milli, has me a little bit uncomfortable about like one-off Nico Collins. It feels like one of those spots where it's like, all right, I'm not going to completely fade. Once again, I'm underweight to him. I'm underweight to Najee. I'm underweight to some of the pieces that, I feel like I can get kind of comparable upside. Nico Collins, if he smashes, he is too cheap at his price point. You're going to be in a lot of, or I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, that is. But I go through the rest of the wide receiver position, and I do think Rashee Rice, just because of the way that they're utilizing him in this offense, I mean, right next to the line of scrimmage, short A-dot, quick 7-8 catches. I mean, 7.5 is his receiving prop today. I mean, my dear sweet God, Rashee Rice, I feel much better about him than I do Nico Collins purely because of just like confirmed target share. It's happened through 3 weeks. I got to think that it's going to continue week 4, week 5. There was an interview where Randy Reid just flat out said, yeah, we're going to feed Rashee Rice. That is what we are going to do. So have fun defending it, NFL. But I feel more comfortable with that chalk than I do with Nico Collins. And if it ends up being like 20% Rice, 30% Collins, I'm going to feel especially good about it. Anything else for the upper ends? Justin Jefferson, there's no Jair Alexander. It's Justin Jefferson. If you're stacking up that game, it's very hard for me to not include Justin Jefferson.
Yep. Fair amount of Justin Jefferson. Rashee Rice is my 4th most owned receiver. If you've been watching the show since Eric and I took over, you can probably see my most common build is cheap QB, triple cheap running back, and stud receivers. Because going back to running back, some of the points where I'm a little under-owned, it's Breece, it's Saquon, it's Bijan, it's the expensive running backs. Because you have such defined workloads at cheap price points there, you can get difference-making receivers, and then you avoid Trey Tucker and the dusty guys at the bottom, which is my preferred build today. But that's how I end up with, my 4 most exposed receivers are Nico, Deontay Johnson, Diggs, and Rice. That's where I'm eating ownership. Sounds like you took a different approach, which there's nothing wrong with. You need to make stands somewhere. But, like that's how I got to the expensive receivers.
It's going to be fun. This is going to be a very, very fun slate. I'm going to know how it's going like immediately. That is for sure.
Those are usually the best of the worst days.
Oh, buddy. And it's actually kind of nice because I'll be able to spend time with my dog and, probably screaming at the TV, the Minnesota Vikings for, the other 2.5 hours and just not watch the red zone at all. So there will be benefits to potentially having Nico Collins go for an 80-yard bomb to start off that game. But anywho, I digress. Let's continue down into the 6K range where Chris Godwin not playing as much ownership. Stephon Diggs, who, yeah, we're gonna still be playing Stephon Diggs, my friends. I think, just playing Stephon Diggs without anything else, no Cam Akers, no Nico Collins could look really, really good in hindsight here. You got Amari Cooper, and that leads me into EMAC throwing out our boy, EMAC. He will be hosting Live Before Lock this evening for the Sunday Showdown slate. Better remember me spot. Play Amari or Aaron Jones. It's Aaron Jones by a landslide for Matt and I, but Amari Cooper, I don't think he exactly loves the Las Vegas organization at this point in time. Probably wants to send it straight down their mouth hole, but I don't.
So does Aaron Jones at Green Bay.
Yeah, definitely Aaron Jones. What is this? Justin Fields, nearing full health. Yeah, okay, never mind. I just was making sure it didn't apply to this slate. The 6K guy I like at the bottom end here. How are we feeling about Keenan Allen?
Not good, but I'm feeling a little risky and maybe going to play more than the field. That week 1 target share was elite for Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, have we really seen enough out of Rome where we're writing off Keenan? I'm going to certainly be over the field. Right. I've been having this internal debate all morning, how much Keenan to play because he's like a 1%er. Right now I have 6%, and that's largely just the product of boosting that game. I was debating doing that individually a little more with him. I don't know, man. Right now, I think I could get more. Could be talked into it.
Let's talk ourselves into getting freaky naughty. Keenan Allen with Kellen Moore, obviously offensive coordinator there with the Chargers. We saw like historic rates for him last year, and that was kind of what he was brought in here to do. We know the lingering hamstring issues and other things that he's had throughout his entire football career. It's a little bit frustrating because we know that ceiling can be there whenever healthy. It was just really, really hard to target it at times. If he's going to be out there, period, I got to assume they're going to be able to utilize him almost in a full capacity. And you just kind of play him in these kind of spots if he's going to be really, really low owned, because you could see 10, 11 targets at 6K range at 1-2% ownership. That is really hard to do. Like, you'll get 6K guys that can get bombs, even like 5K range, going to Rashid Shaheed, 4 targets, 3 catches, 120 and 2 touchdowns. Those are things that happen. But like Keenan Allen, I feel like is the guy that in PPR scoring, DraftKings scoring, if you can get it low ownership at any point in time, you just kind of click the button, don't you, Matt?
You only have to play, like, if you're playing 150 and you played 5 lineups with him, you'd be significantly over the field.
Right. That's
So,
a good
yeah,
way of looking at it too.
I'm clicking the button on him. Not a lot, but you don't have to click it a lot, and you're overexposed.
All right. Let's get into the nitty gritty of it, because now the 5K range, Pickens is pulling ownership. No, thank you. Deontay Johnson is pulling crazy ownership because of one game. One game. We are overreacting a lot, I think, with Deontay Johnson and this ownership, but there is no doubt that you see the red zone target share, you see, the massive upside, and you see Andy Dalton, who has been very serviceable, and you see a Cincinnati secondary on the other side. And this doesn't exactly suck to have 5,600 Deontay Johnson. Again, first click in cash. It's him and Nico Collins. I'm not even going to get remotely close to talking you off of those in cash, but in tournaments, I could be talked off of some Deontay Johnson. Can you, Matt?
Yeah, for sure. And when we poke holes in the best plays of the slate, it doesn't mean we don't like them. Like you're making a stand on Nico Collins.
Yes.
You can't play every high-owned player in DFS unless you just want to donate your money. And I agree with you. Deontay is a guy I'm trying to come in slightly under to the field on. It is a vast overreaction to the week 1 sample. It definitely comes with nerves, because you look at weighted opportunity, expected fantasy points, any sort of metric that tries to predict what should have been. Deontay Johnson was the best receiver in the NFL last week. It wasn't close. He's meeting no resistance. Andy Dalton should be kept as clean as possible against this lackluster Cincinnati pass rush. So yeah, it's terrifying. But there's a lot of receivers that are electric on this slate. So I don't think, making Deontay Johnson a stand. And if you want to just call it opportunity cost, I think that's fine enough. Like, I'm not coming in significantly overweight to Deontay Johnson, who's already owned, at the expense of playing the other elite receivers on this slate. In the price range, it's kind of tough there. But again, you could make very easy 2v2s. You come off a Brees, you go to a guy like Aaron Jones, then boom, you can go Deontay to Rashee Rice, to Marvin Harrison, whoever it is that's your choice, Godwin, Diggs. That's a swap I'm making a lot of the time today.
I love that. Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to, is finding leverage, finding these tournament plays where the difference between him and the rest of the range, based on weeks 1 and 2, with obviously different quarterback plays, one thing, but like one game, and he is nuclear chalk. And I get it. In cash, you're clicking on it. Everything you saw with Dalton, you're absolutely doing it. But I want to at least heed the warning there, because there are guys like Jordan Addison pulling no ownership today. Jordan Addison was a dude last year for my Minnesota Vikings, and getting him back at 5,100, he's underpriced based on what we saw last season. Rome Odunze, no ownership, 5,200 with Keenan Allen back. I like getting to him against the Rams and that lack of secondary or defensive talent whatsoever. I think there's just so many good tournament plays to potentially look for the pivot, the upside. And, if they do certain things, like a team is going to maybe handle Deontay Johnson a little bit differently coming off of last week. I think Carolina is a football team that I don't think any of us expect to be good going forward, but there's no doubt that Deontay Johnson, cash, click on him. I'm underweight in tournaments. Yet another guy that just freaks me out to be underweight too, but I'm going to live with the result of it. Anything else in the 5K range?
I don't think so. Guys that I have sprinklings of, but no real significant stands. Upper
Choose?
fives, I guess, like T, and I'm playing some
Love
Packers,
T.
so I do have some Dobbs, and that's because I boosted that game.
Let me double check my Jamar Chase too. Where did he go? Jamar Chase, yeah, more of a FanDuel play for me. 9,200, nobody wants to go there, but obviously the double touchdowns, that could be very, very useful. On DK, I think Justin Jefferson, amongst the expensive guys, that's still going to be where I land. 7,700, really, really cheap for Chase there. But I think just from a contrarian perspective on FanDuel, where you're double stacking Joe Burrow and just about everything you're doing, and we'll go to tight end where it is going to be wide open there. But let's go into the sub 5Ks here on DraftKings and round out wide receiver here. Ladd McConkey, I expect the Chargers to get blasted against Kansas City. I just expect them to get completely tortured. It's going to be blood on the field. It's going to be awful. But I think Ladd McConkey is very, very good. Crazy high, nearly 30% target share when he's out on the field. That seems pretty good. 4,800 for him. No Joshua Palmer in massive capacities. I got to think he's going to be somewhat limited here. We'll just be paying attention to that. But Ladd McConkey, I think, is going to be pretty good in come from behind mode. Justin Herbert going to have to drop back. That'll be fun to watch. Greg Dortch, he's kind of the punt du jour. Michael Wilson, kind of the punt du jour in that game environment. Totally get it. But I'm probably going to be shying away to some extent there. I want to talk about Yeshivas, if you will. He's fantastic. 4,100. I think double stacks with him and either Higgins or Chase or Gesicki. I mean, so many ways to have him out there. He's playing a lot more than I was expecting, even with T. Higgins back in that game, in that week 3 game. T. Higgins on the field nearly the entire time and still didn't get there. That was tilting, but I like getting to him at 4,100 just because of how good Joe Burrow's looked. I know Cincinnati's 0-3 and hasn't looked good enough, but Yeshivas is going to be somebody at 4,100 to mix into tournament lineups for me. And Noah Brown, 3,800, the last guy to throw out there. He was brought in as a guy that, I can't believe he got let go from Houston based at what we saw at times last season. They kept my guy Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State and what's his name? John Mechie as well. But Noah Brown, 3,800, the game environment. I'll take some shots on that. Anything for you, sub 5K, to take shots on?
No, this is an area I'm actively trying to either cap the exposure to on the own players. There's a couple that are in double digits. We're expecting some pretty decent ownership on Mooney, Dortch, Wilson. I'm not playing in Trey Tucker. Holy smokes. Like Trey Tucker in double digit ownership. I capped every one of these players at 7%. And I mean, that's another reason why I'm playing like the triple cheap RB build, like a lot of lineups that are Najee, Chuba, and then like a Jones or something rather than get to Brees. So you don't have to touch these red hot receivers and burn your hands. But if you do want pivots, there are a couple of them. I love the Oshivas call. He's somebody that I am looking to. Otherwise, in this range, Tutu Atwell, he's a little expensive for my liking, but he's a natural attachment to a game I boosted. So I did get a fair amount of him just as a run back to Chicago stuff. Demarcus Robinson's 5,100. He's not a part of this discussion, but it's the same thesis with him. Otherwise, down here, like some guys I got pieces of, Josh Downs, Elijah Moore, and that's basically just because I capped everyone else in this range.
Good stuff.
I mean, I'll say this. If you play into exposure with like Trey Tucker and he's in 15% of your lineups, I'm not saying he's going to have a bad game, but like you could really be kicking yourself at the end of the day and just being like, what was I doing playing Trey Tucker into ownership? He's at best the number 3 target for a horrible offense that prefers to run the ball when they can. They've been blasted a lot, so that hasn't always worked. But man, I don't know.
Notice how I didn't say his name. Cleveland. They're gonna. I mean, it's so hard at ownership to click on Trey Tucker. In my opinion, I've seen a lot of discussion on him being a cash guy. I don't think you have to play him in cash today. Do you? I mean, that would just be a little too thin for my liking. I'd rather be punting at tight end with Elijah Higgins on DK and just avoiding Trey Tucker altogether, playing, the combination. Like Deontay Johnson is cheap enough there. We have enough cheap running backs. You don't have to play Trey Tucker in cash today.
You don't have to. You could. I don't really have a problem with it, but I'm not playing cash, so I'm not even thinking about it.
Okay. Well, I wanted to at least think about it because, again, from a tournament perspective today, he ain't going to be my guy. But we do have an opportunity for, if you dominating tournaments, you get some really cool stuff. It is the Hall of Fame, my friends. The Stochastic Hall of Fame. Check it out if you guys end up taking down a tournament here. And Jordan Klein's going to pull up all the specifics here on the screen right now for you. It's an incredible program we have. Go to stokastic.com/HOF. Really cool rings, too. You get a couple of different tiered accesses now to different things. But specifically, finish top 3 in any 5,000 plus entry contest. Tweet your win to Stokastic HOF over on Twitter/X/whatever Matt and I called it earlier, and take advantage of all these great offerings: bronze, silver, gold, 3-time Hall of Fame people, $550 plus value. Great stuff from the program, and Lofty himself has put a bunch of work and time into this. Please honor him by checking out our Ring of Honor, by checking out all of the massive wins that we have going here. And yeah, look at that. We got Kevin Roach, Sean Geezy, everybody there. Oh, those are really cool rings. That's for sure. So check those out. Check out the Stochastic HOF over on X. Go give it a follow and then tweet those wins. 5,000 plus entries. Really great offerings for you to take advantage of today. All right, my friend, let's round out this program with tight end and then defenses quickly moving along. And then we'll bolting. But first, super chats. We got to catch up. Brandon Wagner, $5. How long does the Stroud/Collins/Diggs double looking? I think it's going to be the most popular double on the entire slate.
Probably. Just
Like
because you don't have
3-4%?
clean doubles with Daniels or Kyler. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the second, I think, would be Kyler, Marvin, Higgins.
Right.
But they also have Dortch and Wilson, so maybe not. But I agree with you. I think that's probably the most popular double.
It'd be really popular. I feel it coming. I feel it coming, babe. I feel it coming. I feel it coming, babe. Let's go to tight end, because this is going to be a fun discussion. Brock Bowers looks really, really nice when you don't have Devontae Adams out there running a bajillion routes and looking like the next fantasy god himself. But, I mean, Cleveland's going to be able to key in on it. Second graded PFF defense. Really, really good on that side of the ball. I got to be thinking there's going to be some problems with Vegas being able to move the ball here at some capacity. I don't know what to necessarily do with him in the last 13 minutes. I currently have 22% of him. He is my highest owned tight end, but there are some different shots that we can take at this position. Dallas Goedert, I think, talked about him being somebody that I want to pair with my Jalen Hurts exposure. I think Mike Gesicki, 3,500. I'm going to kind of open up the entire board to you. Who are your 3 highest owned tight ends in your lineups today?
Goddard, Bowers, and Gesicki.
So we have the exact same 3. That's fun.
Yay.
Most people are, I think.
I mean, you have to force Bowers up there again, but I'm always doing that.
He's so good.
He's so good. Playing Bowers until he's 7'2".
I think he's only 6'1".
Pricing.
I was kidding. Those are jokes. They're not funny jokes. They're just jokes. How tall? He's got to be taller than 6'1". I'm a liar.
He's definitely taller than 6'1", for sure.
He's gigantic. He is 6'4". There you go. 6'4".
6'4".
Mm-hmm.
And fast as lightning.
Just wild stuff. Jordan Klein, I got all these super chats. You don't need to keep sending these to me and spamming my stuff. We got to literally every single super chat today. I'm a stud. I got this covered, baby. 4 years. 4 years is all it took for me, Matt Kajeski, to be functional at the hosting of NFL Live Before Lock.
But now you're a wagon.
Now I'm a frickin' wagon. Matt's wagon of the week. We'll get there at the very end of the show because I love the graphic. Just cue it up, Jordan Klein.
Have we been using that all year and I haven't known?
Yep, you have not noticed at all, but it always shows up at like the very tail end when we go to like the 2 touchdowns. There it is. So beautiful. I love that like basically it's Ben Raza sitting next to you with dysentery, just trying to get through the Oregon Trail.
That started on our college football show. We have our wagon of the year.
Oh, it's beautiful. Well, it's come over to the almost said NBA, the NFL streets. I mean, that's so beautiful. Ben's just sitting there so respectfully with his hands in his lap, like a nice subservient partner. That's very nice. Very nice. Elijah Higgins, are we really going to be playing a popular Elijah Higgins today in cash?
In cash, I think it's a good idea.
I
Such a
think so.
dumpster fire tight end position. Like, why not just go all the way down and play the guy who's extremely cheap? And then in cash, you're not super worried about differentiation anyway. But for tournaments, even with this same idea, you could get different elsewhere if you'd like to.
I like to get different.
I have no problem with him. I think he's completely fine.
Marvin Harrison Jr. will ruin many a day today. He did that week too. I think it's very live any week for Marvin Harrison to ruin weeks, but I also like more confirmed target shares. I mean, with Trey McBride out, I do think this is going to be very interesting to see what happens. Michael Wilson, and then also Greg Dortch, who over 3.5 catches. I feel pretty good about that one, but I don't feel very good for him being a massive part of my DFS lineups if he's going to get steamed up. It's just a really uncomfortable situation. But yeah, Marvin Harrison, obviously for tournaments, he'll be more of an afternoon play for me. Yeah, that's going to definitely come to fruition. He was crazy. Marvin Harrison all day. I didn't say he was bad, Travis Scott. I didn't say that at all. Tight end, any like low owned pieces that you're taking shots on? I mean, I'm getting to some pieces of stacks. And then on FanDuel, I think Isaiah Likely looks awesome. But you know, who wants to talk about FanDuel other than me today? Anything else for you at the tight end position?
Cole Kmet for really low owned. Again, stack the game up. Got more craft because stack the game up. I do think Strange is fine at his ownership. He's like in the middle of this pack. He's been playing a lot and playing well. Dalton Schultz is a really, really unowned piece of Houston. You know, if you want to play a Houston double stack and remove perhaps one piece of the most owned double stack on the slate, you go from like a Diggs to a Dalton Schultz. Not saying it's a great idea, but if you're playing large field tournaments, you are saving yourself maybe 30% ownership or something crazy. Just like taking out a Diggs and going to a Schultz, something like that.
You can't triple stack a double stack. You can't triple stack a double stack.
Did I say that?
No, what movie?
I have no idea.
Oh my God.
What movie is it?
It's the second time you failed me on Dumb and Dumber in like 4 weeks.
Well, you knew I hadn't seen it. Why did you throw it out there again?
Because I thought you corrected Harry. I thought you took care of it.
Is that Harry Potter? Who's Harry? The only Harry I know is Harry Potter.
You're trolling me, right?
I'm not kidding. That's on you, man. Your expectations are too high. Too high.
Let's talk defense and get the hell out of here. How's that sound? Oh, yeah, and then we'll do 2 touchdowns and whatever. Defense, friends, defense. They need love too. No discrimination here, squirrel. So get your hands off my cheeks and let me study how you ride the beat, you big freak. We're going to the defensive side of things. We've got the Chiefs. I love the Chiefs against the Chargers. May I remind you that the absolute ridiculousness, again, it's 1%, 2% defenses here, but I'm looking at places where the 49ers and Jets are pulling more ownership, and New England, I think they're going to be just running it with Ramondre Stevenson no matter what, even if it's ineffective. The Jets, yeah, they're pretty darn good. I think they're a defense to pay up for, but the Chargers, they're going to try to get the run going here, but they have so many guys out. Offensive line decimated. Justin Herbert just sitting back there, and against Pittsburgh didn't go very well. Chiefs defense, I know they're not necessarily Pittsburgh, but I think they're a top 5 unit in football still. The Chiefs are ridiculous on that side of the football. Kind of rode their coattails alongside, you know, a Patrick Mahomes who got it going there finally in the Super Bowl. But man, the Chiefs defense looks good for tournaments for me today. The Browns as well against Vegas, trying to get leverage off of, you know, trying to make anything on Vegas, the Trey Tucker people, anything that you don't have Brock Bowers in. I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to be spending up for defense to get a little bit different. And then in terms of punts, I'm looking at the Falcons against New Orleans. You have limited pieces potentially in Chris Olave. I think Alvin Kamara is going to be all right, but still a decent enough punt. And then the Rams against Chicago. Caleb Williams, prove it, son, prove it. I think those are some decent punts. Where are you going in the defensive side of the football to round out the program?
I agree with you. My favorite punt is the Atlanta Falcons. It should be what is a decent matchup against New Orleans, who has some offensive line injuries that are pretty concerning to me. I'm always trying to pay down at defense if possible. So that is one of my most owned. From there, I think the Texans are very interesting against Trevor Lawrence. That should be a surprise to nobody. And one thing I'm doing is trying to play more defenses in this mega owned game. I feel terrible about this because they're both awful, but Arizona and Washington. if you have some sort of defensive weirdness in this game coming at the expense of the offense, which is extremely owned, could be a very nice leverage spot. I'm not doing this in a lot of lineups, but it is something I'm doing.
Oh boy. Well, we got 5 minutes left, everybody. Smash the like button. If you don't get over 1.5K likes, Matt's never going to see Dumb and Dumber, and the world cannot rectify its problems. We absolutely need that to happen. I'd rather you do that for hitting 100,000 subs on this channel than drink a Four Loko. That's just my personal opinion. Dumb and Dumber, a little bit healthier choice. Maybe, I don't know. Some people might argue against that, but one of the all-time GOAT classic movies, and the fact that you haven't seen it is very, very disappointing, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I don't plan on watching it, so sorry, buddy.
Well, fuck you too. All right, let's finish it out. 2 touchdowns. Who's going to score 102 tutties today? Begin. Let us know. Who is your wagon of the day?
Brock Bowers.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I
mean, his
tried not
receiving
to
props
pick,
like 53.5. Is that like just an all-out full send for you?
I thought we weren't supposed to pick like the Justin Jeffersons, you know? Like, aren't we supposed to pick someone that's not towards the top of touchdown and yardage props? You know, like it's our underrated guy.
Yeah, I gave you Alec Pierce week 1. What else do you want from me?
Oh, you want me to
What do
go? You want me
from
to go greasy as hell?
Oh yeah, I want to hear the most disturbing,
Oh.
disgusting guy you got.
All right.
I'll give him a boost here in my last run here too, because I'm going to upload this in 2 seconds.
Tutu Atwell.
Oh my God. He played college football SEC at
ACC at Louisville.
Oh, Louisville, yeah. But he was an absolute wagon there. Absolute
Yes.
wagon.
He was a wagon there. He was very good.
Absolute wagon. Oh God, I have so much Rams defense in this last run. I was going to give you Jonathan Mingo. Everybody. Nowadays, everybody want to talk like they got something to say, but nothing comes out when they move the lips. Just a bunch of gibberish. What the fuck up with that? Definitely forgot about Drake because Deontay Johnson is crazy popular. And how do you get leverage? Well, you get leverage by playing a teammate that potentially goes completely off. You could double stack. You can double stack a triple stack. But Jonathan Mingo, oh boy, 3,300 Sims Tool gave me lots. And you know what? I'm okay with it. We saved him best for last. That should be fun. He gets you 100 and a touchdown today. Maybe not 2 because he sucks, but want to just throw it out there. Andy Dalton, Cincinnati defense. Ooh, things are good. Jordan just had to do that. He just had
I didn't see what he
finish out
did.
the show. Just bad things. Just assume that if I'm mad that it's Jordan Klein making me look like a dipshit. I guess I do a good enough job of that myself, but
Same.
we have 2 minutes left here, Matt. Anything that you really want the people to know here before we get the heck up out of here?
Well, there's a fair amount of chalk in the late games. You already mentioned a couple late swap pieces,
Yeah.
but if you're only playing a couple lineups, this is something you should be cognizant of. And trying to take advantage of the field, especially if you have a low owned piece in the early window. That piece does well, you can probably play more chalk. If it does poorly, you probably want to consider making a swap.
I really have nothing else to add. It is going to be a great late swap slate, I believe. So pay attention to your lineups. If you're on FanDuel, also that late night hammer time, you're going to have a lot of opportunities, I think, to potentially see. Is Mark Andrews dead? Is Mark Andrews going to ever reclaim what was rightfully his?
Doesn't seem like it. He's not even playing a lot anymore.
No, it's like sub 30% of snaps last time out. And I was just curious because I wanted to get your thoughts on that. We'll have all of the thoughts for the showdown coming up with EMAC and Matt Bellman this evening. So make sure you check that out. Starting up, I believe it's 45 minutes before that game starts. So yeah, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. But Matt Gajeski, Matt_Gajeski over on X. Go follow him there. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Thank you guys for hanging out with us on a Sunday morning. It means a lot. Eric and I both really appreciate you being here and everything you do for us. So thank you again. Good luck. Let's make some money today.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Jordan Klein. The best show ever. I didn't have to hear you one time. It was excellent. It was fantastic. Let's get out of here. Best of luck, friends. Oh, Nico Collins, don't completely end my life. Have a good one.